Hello and welcome to Debate Night. I'm Laura Jones and we are coming to you live from Alumni Gymnasium on the campus of Rider University in Lawrenceville, New Jersey for the very first New Jersey gubernatorial debate. Tonight's 90-minute debate brings together the race for governor right here to this very stage for the first time in a head-to-head debate between Democrat Mikey Sherrill and Republican Jack Ciattarelli. This is a town hall style debate. Most of the questions will come from real New Jersey voters right here in this room, asking questions about the issues that matter most to them and to you. Some questions will also come from the New Jersey Globe editor, David Wildstein, Micah Rasmussen, director of the Rebovich Institute for New Jersey Politics at Rider University, and Sophie Nieto-Munoz of the New Jersey Monitor. Now, the rules were set in advance. Both campaigns agreed. Each voter asks a question. Each candidate answers. Equal time, no filibusters, no gotchas. Real talk about the issues New Jerseyans care about. Tonight's debate is sponsored by the New Jersey Globe, On New Jersey, and Rider University, and is presented to you by O'Toole Scrivo. Streaming is powered by PSEG. It is one of two debates approved by the New Jersey Election Law Enforcement Commission for governor in the state of New Jersey. Now, one quick request before we begin. I'm going to ask the audience to hold their Jersey-style applause so our candidates don't lose any time tonight, except for right now, when I introduce the two people who want to be your next governor, Republican Jack Ciattarelli and Democrat Mikey Sherrill. All right, we're just going to let our media finish getting their shots. We're going to get this debate rolling. All right, we don't want to waste any time, and we are going to get this debate growing with Mikey Sherrill. She's going to be giving the first opening statement, and she has 60 seconds. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Mikey Sherrill.
Good evening, New Jersey. My name is Mikey Sherrill, and I have a different kind of background, so I'm going to be a different kind of governor. I'm a former Navy helicopter pilot, federal prosecutor, member of Congress, and Jason and I are raising our 4 great kids. And so that's why I am laser focused on driving down costs for families like yours. I'm going to declare a state of emergency on day 1, freezing your rate hikes. I'm going to demand transparency and accountability from our government to save you time and money. And for those of you who have been following Jack's race, you've heard a lot of nonsense. And you're going to hear a lot more tonight. But there's a clear choice. In 1990, Jack took his first of many votes to raise your taxes. That was the same year I took my first of many oaths to support and defend the Constitution of the United States. He'll support abortion bans. I'll support your personal freedoms. He'll do whatever Trump tells him to do, and I will fight anybody to work for you. Thank you.
Jack Ciattarelli, it is your turn to deliver your opening statement. Jack Ciattarelli.
New Jersey, we need change. We need a hands-on CEO governor who's from New Jersey that knows exactly what needs to be done and is willing to do it. Overwhelmingly, New Jerseyans feel that we're heading the wrong direction. Here's why. There's an affordability in this crisis because of the taxes you pay and now because of your electricity rates. There's a public education crisis in this state. We've slipped from 2 to 12 on the national report card because we no longer focus on critical life skills and vocational training. There's a public safety crisis in this state. Nonviolent crime is through the roof, break-ins, car thefts, flash mobs in our malls and Jersey Shore. There's an overdevelopment crisis in the state where we're taking Garden right out of the Garden State with all the overdevelopment. We're the worst place in the country in which to do business. These are the issues. My opponent will blame all these things on the president. Make no mistake. The party that's controlled our legislature for 25 years, the party that's controlled the executive branch for the 8 years, are the reason why we are today. I look forward to discussing my specific plans on how to fix New Jersey.
Thank you both. Thank you both. All right, we're going to head over to our panel. Our first question comes from David Wildstein, and it goes to Mikey Sherrill.
Congressman, one of the things I've heard New Jerseyans say is that your campaign has had plenty of broad talking points, but has been light on specific fixes to the state's problems. So what do you say to people who question your mastery of state government issues and your desire to speak more about New Jersey and how they'll deal with the White House and Congress than about local issues?
So I'm the only one that has a plan to actually take on the tough problems of New Jersey. In fact, Jack's been in office before, and a lot of the things he complains about, he was the architect of. But that's why I've committed to declaring a state of emergency on energy costs on day one, to drive down your costs, to freeze rate hikes. I'm going to have a dashboard so you can see where your permitting is as we cut through red tape and regulatory issues so we can drive down costs. I'll make sure that we have a report card online so you can see exactly where your money goes and hold me accountable when the state's not performing well. So that's the kind of transparency, accountability, and cost savings I'm going to bring to government. Jack doesn't have a plan to do it because all he does is say that Trump's right. It's okay to drive up your tariffs. It's okay to have the one big beautiful bill which drives up your health care and utility costs. Not on my watch.
You just cited a campaign that's short on specifics, and what you just got is 60 seconds of generalities and platitudes. My plan is very specific on how to fix New Jersey. When it comes to affordability, how about we make all retirement income tax-free? How about we freeze property taxes once you hit 870? How about we allow you to deduct 100% of your property taxes on your New Jersey tax return? How about we make the first 2 years of income, post-high school, post-college, tax-free so young people can get a start? How about we stop with all the overdevelopment by revisiting our Mount Laurel housing doctrine? How about we take the handcuffs off our police? These are the specifics that we can talk about on how to fix New Jersey.
Our next question is just a production note. We lost our monitors out here. I'm not sure if the control room knows that or not. But our next question is go Micah Rasmussen, and it goes to Jack Tittarelli.
When you first ran for governor, you were often critical of President Trump. Today, he says you've changed. What advice can you give sincere New Jerseyans who are closer to where you were in 2017 and say they can't look beyond the nation's border chief accepting a bribe, or the FCC silencing dissent, or those January 6th pardons for attacking our police?
Well, let's talk about what the president has done for New Jersey since he took office. He's put a temporary halt on wind farms off the Jersey Shore. I'll make that permanent. He's beating up on the New York Democrats over their congestion pricing plan, which I think is an egregious money grab. We shouldn't be paying for their subway system. He's also quadrupled the SALT deduction on our federal tax returns. The big, beautiful bill also doubled the child care tax credit for those with young children. It also doesn't tax tips, overtime, and Social Security. It provides a magnificent tax credit for those that send their kids to private school. I want you to think about those four things. They're good for all New Jerseyans. She voted no, my opponent did, on that bill. But make no mistake, my job is to represent and advocate. That's our timer.
I've got your timer.
Okay. My job is to advocate for the 9.3 million citizens of this state, and I'll always do right by the citizens of this state, no matter who occupies the White House.
Mikey Sherrill.
I'm sure he would like you to focus on those four things because he doesn't want you to focus on this tariff plan, which is putting small businesses out of business and freezing hiring from our large businesses. He doesn't want you to focus on the employment numbers or the fact that the deficit has gone up by $70 billion in the year Trump's been in office. He doesn't want you to focus on the one big beautiful bill, which is going to raise families' utility costs by hundreds of dollars, which is going to imperil the health care of 1 in 3 children, which already now they're going after Affordable Care Act. So they're taking away health care from people who have it, health care insurance, and then they're trying to drive up costs for people who already have the health care insurance. So in every single way, we're seeing costs go up on New Jersey families, and Jack just says he has nothing he disagrees with Donald Trump on. That's not leadership. This state needs real leadership, and that's exactly what I'll do as governor.
Our next question.
Micah, are there chances for rebuttals?
That it wasn't an attack. We're going to go on to our next question. And I also want to ask the audience if you could refrain from applauding, because every few seconds takes up time. Sophie has the next question going to Mikey Sherrill.
Congresswoman, in recent years and months, politics has grown more divisive, leading to a rise in politically motivated threats and violence. Would you support legislation to make political violence a hate crime? And as governor, what would you do to keep political tensions from escalating?
So this is something I think about all the time. And everyone in elected office now faces this threat to themselves, but worse, to their families. And so we're all very concerned about it, which is why we advocated to the state to make sure not only myself, but Jack had more money to support his personal security and my family's security as well. It's why we continue to work to fight against political hatred. And so we need to do more, because in this nation, we should be able to have free speech. I vowed to defend and fight for free speech my entire life, but it should never devolve into political violence. That is something I've also stood against my entire life. And I worry very much because now too many people are thinking to themselves, I'm not sure if I should go into political office. I'm not sure if I should run because I don't want to imperil my family. And that's why I continue to fight hard to protect people running, to make sure we have free speech in this nation, and we always stand against political violence.
Jack Ciattarelli.
I think it's the responsibility of any public official and candidate for office to engage in rhetoric that doesn't divide us. My campaign has been about uniting us, not dividing us. I do think we need to take down the temperature a whole lot. So I support. The question was whether or not I support, because a bill was recently introduced in the legislature by one of our Republican state senators, whether or not to make political violence a hate crime and put some real legal teeth behind it. I don't think she answered the question. The answer to the question is yes. I believe that we should do that here in New Jersey. And again, I think we all have a responsibility to engage in rhetoric that doesn't divide us and doesn't promote hate. And this campaign from the very beginning has had a very positive energy about it. It's a campaign that's about uniting, not dividing. It's a campaign that's about bringing people together, not dividing us. It's a campaign that's about people, not power or politics. And so my opponent on Friday went down to Washington, voted yes on a resolution to celebrate Charlie Kirk's life. But then within minutes, sent out a statement that basically condemned him. I think that was wrong.
You can have 30 seconds to respond.
That's a neat trick to say you don't want to divide people, and then in your answer, bring up something that's very divisive. Here's the thing. I care deeply about this country. I stand against political violence. The videos that came out about after Charlie Kirk shooting were horrific. And I feel horrible because my kids have seen him, and so I can't even imagine how the Kirk family feels. And that should never happen to anyone because they speak out. And I also have stood up my entire life, and I've taken numerous oaths, up to and including offering to die for this country for free speech.
Time.
And so I think it's fair to have free speech, but I think it should go to everyone, to Jimmy Kimmel and to myself as well.
Final word, Jack Ciattarelli, 15 seconds. Ask the audience to please remain quiet. 15 seconds for you.
She still hasn't answered your question. And we see this time and time in the campaign, generalities, platitudes, ducking the direct question by not giving a direct answer.
That's just not true. My direct answer is, I voted to protect free speech. I voted to end political violence. I also think it's fair, Jack, to speak up when you disagree with something. And so if you want to stand up that Martin Luther King was a bad guy, or that women should submit to their husbands, you, Jack, are welcome to do that. And I have the right to say that I disagree with it.
Okay. We're gonna move on now. We're gonna move on to our audience. Our next question, and we have a lot of questions to get to, is from Elicitia. She is a student at Rider University from Brick, and that will go to Jack Chittarelli.
So New Jersey has one of the highest property taxes and cost of living in the nation. What steps would you take to make the state more affordable for working class and middle class families?
Now, thank you for that question very, very much. So we know there's affordability in the crisis. We know that our state budget, it took 238 years to get to 36 billion, and in 8 years it's gone from 36 to 59 billion. And yet none of that investment has been made to make life more affordable. In fact, it's only become more unaffordable here in the state of New Jersey. So there's a number of very specific proposals in my platform. We talked about a few already, making all retirement income tax free for our seniors because they worry about living out their lives in a home, freezing property taxes once you hit age 70 for life, allowing seniors to deduct 100% of their property taxes on the New Jersey tax return, capping property taxes at 1% of the assessed value of your home if you're a first-time home buyer, making the first 2 years out of high school, the first 2 years out of college, tax-free, so you help get started here. These are just some of the things that we can do to make Jersey more affordable for everybody. And so, but what you'll also see is somebody that's going to be very responsive about the way we spend our money. I will be very responsibly and surgically reduce the size and cost of our state government to afford a tax cut for individuals and businesses.
Thank you. I've been laser focused on driving down costs for New Jerseyans. Jack, on the other hand, has voted at every single level of government to raise your taxes. In fact, he's voted against over $1 billion in property tax relief, and he supported Trump in implementing over $30 billion against property tax relief. So in every way, he's raised costs on New Jerseyans. That's why I'm going to get into office and make sure I'm lowering them by sharing services and school administrative costs in municipal courts and continuing to hammer home the way in which we can support seniors with Anchor and Stay New Jersey so that they aren't here susceptible to the constant increases in property taxes. I'll continue to lower your costs, and Jack's going to raise them at every level.
30 seconds, Jack Chittarelli.
So a couple of things about the Anchor and Stay New Jersey program. I don't think somebody making $500,000 a year should get a property tax rebate in this state. Now, that to me is not right. I think we should use the money to spread out. But let me say something else. I think it's insulting here in New Jersey when we take money out of your right-hand pocket, put some back in your left-hand pocket, and call it a fancy name. But one other thing about the affordability crisis. Remember one thing that she'll never remind you of. The Democrats have controlled our state legislature for 25 years. The Democrats have controlled the executive branch, the governorship, for 8 years. And look where we are today.
All right, we're going to go back to the audience. Our next question is coming from Frederick. Frederick is a professor here at Rider University, and he is from Hamilton. Frederick's question is going to go to Mikey Sherrill.
How would you reduce the New Jersey tax burden on senior citizens?
Thank you. This is something that, as you just heard, Jack is against, but I am for reducing the property tax burden on our seniors because it's too expensive to stay here, watch your grandchildren grow, live on a fixed income when you constantly see your taxes going up. It's why I've been supportive of Stay and Anchor, to make sure that our seniors can afford to stay here in retirement and stay with their families as opposed to moving out of our state.
Jack Chittarelli.
This is starting to sound like a number of her commercials on TV. They're not completely truthful. So a couple of things. To be specific, make all retirement income tax free the way it is in Pennsylvania, number one. Freeze your property taxes for life once you hit age 70. Allow seniors to deduct 100% of their property taxes on their New Jersey tax return. Those are just some of the things that we can do across the state here in New Jersey. So you're not hearing any specifics. And again, the Anchor program, Stay New Jersey, they're in part gimmick. Why do we take money out of your right-hand pocket, put some back in your left-hand pocket, and then give it a fancy name? That's what the Democrats have been doing for years. I prefer not to take out of your pocket to begin with. And let me go as far as to say we need to simplify our income tax rates for everybody. Pennsylvania has a 3% flat tax. Ours is 10.75. I'm proposing 3 new tax brackets. 3%, 4%, and 5%. We need to be regionally competitive. We're losing people to Florida. We're losing people to Pennsylvania. We've got to stop it.
You can have 30 seconds.
So talk about vague programs and talk about misleading statements. Here's Jack's proposal to raise costs on everything and food and clothing on the table. This is what he's talking about that he won't tell you. 10% increases on groceries in our state. This is exactly what he has continued to bring up since 2017. And then when he's called on it, he says, oh, I just said we should put it on the table. We know it's on the table, Jack. We want it off the table.
Final word, Jack, to our next question then.
So if any of you think I'm going to raise your sales tax to 10%, I got a bridge I want to sell you for about 50 cents. She knows it's a lie. They're trying to exploit you. They're trying to manipulate you. She knows she's in trouble in this campaign, so this campaign is going to lie to you over and over again. Fasten your seatbelts for the next 44 days, because that's exactly what's going to happen. So we're going to lower the overall tax burden for all New Jerseyans. You've heard me give you specifics. For every class, we can do this if we're responsible with our spending. And I will cut the size and cost of the state government to afford a tax cut for everybody. Under Governor Cettarelli, everybody's tax burden will be lessened, not increased.
Our next question, we're going back to the audience. We're going to Michael. Michael is an alum of Rider University and from Lawrenceville. Michael, your question is going to Jack Cettarelli.
The back and forth blame on electricity rates has grown a little tiresome. And frankly, I would like to hear a little more specifics, because we all know that there are many factors that contribute to our rate increases. So without blaming each other, what specifically you're going to do to tackle things like the grid operator, state mandates, and other impacts that rise our costs?
So, Michael, I don't think it's blame when you're giving facts, and here are the facts. When Phil Murphy took office, we were an electricity exporter. We produced more electricity than we needed. He shut down 6 different electricity generation plants. He put an unofficial moratorium on natural gas. He didn't expand our nuclear capabilities in South Jersey, 0 carbon emissions. He didn't accelerate solar. Talk to solar developers who want to use the rooftops of warehouses, which is prime real estate, for solar arrays. Didn't accelerate that. What he did do is he bet it all on wind. Now, if he was from New Jersey, and anybody who's from New Jersey would know that the Jersey Shore is sacrosanct here in this state. Nobody wants wind farms off our Jersey Shore. Male, female, young and old, Republican, liberal, conservative, liberal, for different reasons. What I've said all along is I'll reopen and repurpose the plants. We'll expand our nuclear footprint in South Jersey. We will accelerate solar on the rooftops of our warehouses, and we're pulling out of the regional greenhouse gas initiative. That carbon tax initiative has been a failure. Air's no cleaner, electricity's only more expensive, and we're not sending ratepayer dollars to other states. By pulling out of Reggie, we can save $500 million a year for ratepayers.
Mike Sherrill.
Thanks for the question. You know, anybody from New Jersey should know that this has been a long time in coming, and that too many people have added to the problem. So whether it's PJM, the grid operator, or FERC, or BPU, whether it's President Trump rolling back some of the initiatives on solar or adding $250 per family to your energy bill, everybody at the table is at fault, and they keep dumping the costs onto the ratepayer here in New Jersey. That is why I'm freezing rate hikes on the ratepayer. Because let's face it, some of our utility companies have made over $1 billion in profits. And yet our ratepayers are constantly suffering. So I'm going to freeze those rate hikes by declaring a state of emergency. I'm going to add massive amounts of power into the grid. Right now, we need to produce power here in our state because the market has been screwed up by PJM, and because Virginia has 1 million data centers, which are sucking all the power out of our market. So we need to produce here, lower cost here, and stop putting the cost on the ratepayers of New Jersey.
Okay.
Laura,
question.
is a rebuttal allowed? We get 15 seconds each?
There wasn't an attack. So we're going to go on to our next question. And our next question is Martha. Our next question from Martha. She is a professor at Rider from Oldbridge.
How do you plan to lower rents in New Jersey?
And I'm sorry, that goes to Mikey Sherrill.
So this is the number one thing I hear from people across the state. When we're talking about affordability, people are saying that they're having too much trouble paying their mortgages, too much trouble paying their rent prices. And we know there are people colluding now in this state to raise rental prices. And we know Jack's not going to do anything about it because one of his biggest donors is actually being taken to court and sued on this very issue. But as governor, I'm going to fight for you. I'm going to make sure we're driving down rental prices, ending the collusion that goes on to drive them up, and continuing to bring more to the market so that people will have better rental prices here across the state.
So you asked a very specific question. Let me give you a specific answer. The reason why rents are going up is because property taxes are going up. The reason why rents are going up is because insurances are going up across the board. The reason why rents are going up is because in many cases, if the tenant doesn't pay electricity, the landlord does, and that's going up. These are all the reasons. And I know oftentimes we talk about homeowners, but we forget that tenants feel the pain too. Every time any one of those expenses goes up, it gets passed on to the tenant. I have a very specific plan on how to lower property taxes. We need a new school funding formula. A more equitable distribution of state aid to our schools will help lower the property tax. From an insurance standpoint, we're such a bad bad state in which to do business, businesses have left. We need more competition. We need more insurance companies to come back here. And under my plan, by pulling out of the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative, we could save $500 million in electricity on day one, whether you pay that or the landlord pays that. The Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative has been a failure. My opponent supports offshore wind. It's never going to be able to meet our energy needs, and it's very, very expensive.
Okay, we're going back over here. Our next question is coming from Joseph. Joseph is a student at Rider University. Joseph, we are going to bring the microphone over. And he's a student from Rider, from Long Valley, and this question is going to Jack Chitterelli.
Should people in my generation and younger have an expectation of privacy in their lives? I mean, we're living in an age of social media and location tracking for who knows what, from people who knows where. So should we have the same expectation of privacy that you and your opponent did when you were growing up?
Yes.
We're going to take that time and go to Mikey Sherrill.
Hey, listen, man, I'm all ears as to enhance. It's a constitutional right to privacy. And so I hear you loud and clear. We live in an age between the internet and everything else where people put all kinds of things on the internet that kind of invade our privacy. So whatever we can do to make sure people's right to privacy is enhanced and protected, I'm all ears on how best to do that.
So, Joseph, what year are you, if I can ask? A senior. Okay, so you went through COVID during school, like my kids did. And that's probably when you started to get online more and more because your classes were online and so much of your life was online. And that's when we sort of stopped really moving forward on how we protect kids online, for example. It's why I am going to put forward the Kids Online Safety Act, which was killed by the majority in the House, but I'm going to make sure we're passing it here in the state so that kids can have better understanding of how to work online and we can keep them safe. There's a mental health crisis in our state. We need to address it. I'm going to have more mental health counselors so that we can all work together to ensure people have that expectation of privacy because we have more coming. We've never appropriately addressed something called Section 230, which holds providers liable. And we now are looking at AI down the road and how that's going to bring a whole extra set of issues. So starting with the Kids Online Safety Act, I'm going to work to make sure kids like you do have an expectation of privacy.
Thank you. Okay, our
Laura,
next question.
Is there an opportunity for further discussion on this issue?
15 seconds.
Well, if we're very, very concerned about the welfare of our children, I do not support policy 5756. I don't think that school districts should be keeping secrets from parents, okay? That's not protecting kids. And if we're concerned about protecting kids, I don't think that biological boys should be playing in girls' sports. She opposes me on both of those issues.
Did you want time to respond? Go ahead. Go ahead.
So I'm a mom of 4 kids. And as I mentioned to Joseph, our kids have gone through COVID. There are mental health issues related to that. We have learning loss because of it. Our kids are struggling. And that's why as parents, it's our job to make sure we're keeping our kids safe at every level. As a mom, I'm going to make sure we do that. Obviously, parents know their kids best, and they need to be able to determine if there's something they want to opt out of in health class.
Wait. Time.
Thank you.
Time. Okay. Our next question is coming from Nancy. And I've been told, I'm given permission to say that, Nancy, you are 96 years old. 96 years old, and from Skillman, New Jersey. Nancy, your question, and that goes to Mikey Sherrill.
There might be other ways to describe me. We all know that public education is such a vital part of what makes New Jersey strong. And so my question to both of you is, should school districts be combined to reduce property taxes? How about municipalities? If so, should mergers be compulsory, given the fact they almost never happen voluntarily?
Thank you very much. So this is something that I know we have to do here in New Jersey, because right now we have more municipalities than California, and we have more school districts than municipalities. And it's raising costs on everybody. We have some school districts who have the whole administrative cost, all of the buildings, and yet they're not even running a K through 12 school system. So we do need to merge some of these school districts. We also need to make some county-based school systems. The ones that we have are some of the best performers in our state. And this is a way in which I think we can ensure we're getting great education to people while driving down property taxes, especially in those areas where we're not running a full K through 12 system. Thank you.
564 towns. We are a home rule state, and people love their home rule, even though it might cost more in taxes. I do not believe their state government should force consolidation. That's up to the locals. But I tell you what, if you do consolidate or you do regionalize, Governor Cettarelli will help incentivize that to make it easier. So if you all make that decision at the local level, we're going to provide incentives. When I was in the state legislature, Princeton Borough and Princeton Township decided to become one. I worked with the administration at the time to provide 100% of the one-time upfront costs to make that more feasible. To fix public education, ma'am, what we have to do, I think, is get back to the basics. Let's get a high-quality education system here in New Jersey. You're never going to hear me say we have the best school system in the country, because we don't. We've slipped from 2 to 12 on the National Report Card. We've got to get back to basics in teaching critical life skills and providing vocational training opportunities for our students with a more rigorous academic curriculum for our students. We need to get back there.
So, Mikey Sherrill, let me just ask a follow-up for clarification. Should there be compulsory consolidation?
So I'd start by offering the carrot to help the areas that want to consolidate. But when there are areas that are not putting enough money into to students, into educators, into the buildings, and then they are taking a lot of money in property taxes and from the state level, then we'll have to start to look at compulsory movements.
Laura, do I get another 15 seconds?
Go ahead.
So let me say something else. When a school system is failing, and there's some reasonable metrics that tell us whether or not a school system is failing, there's got to be choice. That choice comes in the form of vouchers. That choice comes in the form of charter schools. My opponent opposes both. There's got to be choice when a school system is failing.
Final thought.
That's some more misinformation from my opponent. I've actually worked hard on charter schools. In fact, my lieutenant governor, Dr. Dale Caldwell, has been involved with charter schools, some high-performing charter schools, because I want to make sure that every child in this state has access to a fantastic education.
Here are the facts of the matter. Phil Murphy's been in office for 8 years, and he's only approved one charter school, and it was 2 weeks before the election in 2021 for political reasons. Okay? The Democratic nominee is owned by the NJEA union leadership, and they hate charter schools.
Okay.
And educational choice.
Okay, we're moving on. Moving on to our next question. Our next question is coming from Olivia from Blackwood, and our question goes to Jack Chittarelli.
How will you address global warming's disproportionate effects on New Jersey's urban communities of color?
Global warming? Yeah, well, global warming, I've admitted, I do think Mother Earth is sending us some powerful signals. I think human activity has a lot to do with that. But we need a rational transition to the future with regard to our energy. And I think that natural gas is a rational transition to the future, as is nuclear energy down in South Jersey, as is solar. We need an all-of-the-above approach. It's not just in our urban areas where the climate change is affecting us. The flooding that you see taking place in our suburban communities has a lot to do with the changes in the climate, and it's adversely affecting the quality of life in many suburban communities that never used to flood before. But make no mistake, that flooding has a lot to do not just with the type of rain we get today, it has to do with overdevelopment. This is a big difference between the two parties. My opponent believes that we should have high-density housing in all 564 towns. I don't believe that. We should only have affordable housing, high-density housing in a town that has infrastructure, mass transit, and opportunities for jobs. If a town doesn't have infrastructure, mass transit, or opportunity for jobs, why are we putting more idling cars on the road?
So that is a great question. I sat in my first term in Congress on science, space, and technology, and I was the chairwoman of the Environment Subcommittee. And that, as you might remember, was the year we had the heat dome over Oregon, which put so many different people in danger as they weren't ready to handle it. We've seen flash flooding here in New Jersey, killing several people throughout the state. We've seen tornadoes and hurricanes like we've never seen before. Our climate is changing, and we need to act. Because in too many of our urban areas, we are seeing high incidences of asthma, for example. So we know that we need to act quickly to protect our environment, but to also ensure that we have better health outcomes in this state. And that's why, as governor, I'm going to make sure that we drive down carbon emissions, drive in massive amounts of power to the grid so we can decrease costs and ensure people are paying lower costs. Thank you.
Laura, do we have 15 each?
15 seconds, and then our next question.
Let me just say this. The way that the Democrats are doing high-density housing in this state flies in the face of sustainability. They like to portray themselves as the pro-environment party, but there's nothing pro-environment about building high-density housing in every one of our 564 towns.
Final thought.
So I'm really proud of my record here. I was actually a lead person passing the Great American Outdoors Act, which preserves open space across this country and right here in New Jersey. I also have worked on projects and gotten money for the Boonton Reservoir, the Essex Hudson Greenway, ensuring that we're preserving open spaces while at the same time delivering on housing for people and ensuring that we are lowering carbon emissions in neighborhoods in urban areas.
Okay, we have one more question from our studio audience before we're going to go to a commercial break. And that question is coming from John. John is a high school student from Edison, New Jersey. And John's question is going to be going to Mikey Sherrill.
Congresswoman, as was said, I'm a high school student who commutes to New York City every single day for that high school. My question to you is, what is your plan to fix New Jersey Transit's systemic issues of overcrowding, delays, and outdated infrastructure?
Thank you so much. This is something I hear about a lot from my husband, Jason, who's in the audience tonight. He commutes into New York City all the time, and he's quit coaching our kids' soccer teams. He doesn't make it home for dinner. He often gives me frantic calls about whether or not I can drive our kids that night because he's not going to make it home in time. And so that's why I've been laser focused. In fact, in my first term, as Trump held Infrastructure Week every week and yet failed to fund the Gateway Tunnel project, I was called the tunnel-obsessed Congresswoman, and I'm proud to say we delivered on that, on the most expensive infrastructure project in the nation, which is key to commuters here. And then when we were seeing summer of hell after summer of hell because the catenary wires were in the way, I demanded Amtrak keep up their rail system better because we utilize it in NJ Transit and got $300 million into Northeast Rail for catenary wires. Now I'm on the Port Authority because they're not handling the wires underneath the tunnel well, and we're seeing fire after fire after fire. So I am going to continue to focus on our rail systems, on systems of transit across this state, and make sure that we see updates and see better movement across our state. Thank you.
Sir, when I'm successful in transforming New Jersey, the hope would be that no one has to go out of state to get anything other than see a Broadway play. What I want to do here in New Jersey is something other states have done. We've got mass transit systems. It's not just trains. The Atlantic City Expressway is a mass transit system with tolls. Parkway and Turnpike are mass transit systems with tolls. New Jersey Transit is a transit system with revenue through fares. Let's put them all under one roof called the Garden State Transportation Authority. Let's get rid of all these different authorities with all these different management structures. Let's put all under one roof, better management, better accountability, one management structure, and we'll give it a dedicated revenue stream called the New Jersey State Budget. Okay, that's where we'll provide the funding. I think that'll be a much better job of managing our mass transit systems. But let me also say this with regard to mass transit. We need to reevaluate every single train line and every single bus line to make sure there's adequate ridership to justify that route, so we can dedicate all the resources we have to the most traveled routes.
Thank you both. We are going to take a quick commercial break. We want you to stay with us as we continue our New Jersey gubernatorial debate between Mikey Sherrill and Jack Ciattarelli. Stay with us.
Hi, I'm Michelle Sekurka, President and CEO of the New Jersey Business and Industry Association. We're excited to join tonight's first gubernatorial debate. As the state's largest and most influential business association, it's our mission to ensure that business is at the center of the next governor's agenda, because when business thrives, so too does our economy. To take us there, we presented our blueprint for competitive New Jersey to both candidates, the policy roadmap to drive innovation and prosperity in New Jersey. Check it out at njbia.org/blueprint. We look forward to working with our next governor to put business at the center. Thank you.
I'm Laura Jones, and welcome back to the Alumni Gymnasium on the campus of Rider University in Lawrenceville. We're going to get right back to our debate between Jack Ciattarelli and Mikey Sherrill. Going to our panel now, and Sophie, you have a question that goes to Jack Ciattarelli first.
Since 2018, New Jersey has been embroiled in a lawsuit arguing more needs to be done to improve the state's segregated school districts, a problem rooted in long-standing housing discrimination and the number of small districts. Would you continue fighting this in court, and what do you think New Jersey can do to achieve less segregated schools?
We do have the most segregated schools, but I wonder if we would be having this discussion if the performance of schools with predominantly black student populations were outperforming schools with predominantly white populations. We need to get back on day one to improving all of our schools, and I intend to do that with a high-impact curriculum. New Jersey recently slipped from 2 to 12 on the national report cards. Most of that's because we haven't made up for all the learning loss following the pandemic when Phil Murphy and the Democrats shut down our schools for 2 years. We opened up our nursing homes, but we closed down our schools. Louisiana and Mississippi have moved significantly. Louisiana from 48 to 32 with a high-impact curriculum. What is that exactly? If your child is behind grade level in any of the critical life skills like reading, writing, and math, that child will spend the next marking period and the one thereafter doing nothing other than reading, writing, math to get them on grade level. The data is clear. I'm a data-driven guy as an MBA CPA. If the child is not on grade level for reading, writing, math by the end of 8th grade, more than likely they will be underemployed their entire life. So while that lawsuit proceeds, let's fix the schools on day one with a high-impact curriculum.
So I spoke before about county-based school systems because that can help address the segregation that we have going on in the state. It's also the way we have some of our best performing high schools, but we need to do more. We need high intensity tutoring because we know there's learning loss. And that's a special kind of tutoring that I've supported here in the state to make sure students get back on track. We also need to address 3rd grade reading and make sure we're pushing in phonics-based reading. We know that's the best way to help children read, and it's a reversal of the way reading has been taught lately. And we know third grade is that critical inflection point. Because if you're not reading at grade level by third grade, you're not going to be able to move on very well to your math and social studies and history work if you can't read your homework. So in these ways, we can really push in as a state, get better outcomes, and address the segregation that we have going on here.
Could you clarify if you're going to, with the lawsuit, clarify? Could you clarify if you're going to continue to pursue the lawsuit?
I don't think it's the governor that's pursuing the lawsuit. The entity that's pursuing the lawsuit, I'm not going to get in the way. What I'm going to do on day one is fix our educational system. It's not the executive branch that's pursuing that lawsuit.
They're fighting the lawsuit. The state is fighting the lawsuit.
Yeah, we're not going to do that if they let the lawsuit proceed. But I'll tell you what, I was in Newark this morning at a house of worship that has the largest black congregation in the state. And you know what they said to me? Fix our school system. Fix our school system. So there's a number of metrics that tell us if a school system is failing: attendance rate, graduation rate, performance on standardized tests, readiness for career if you're not going to high school, going to college. If a school system is failing in 2, 3, or 4 out of 4 of those categories, that district, that community needs choice. I'm going to give them choice. My opponent is not going to give them choice.
Mikey Sherrill, but 30 seconds for that, 30 seconds.
I think what you just heard is a very clear difference. I care deeply about our school system, and I'm going to make sure it performs better. I'm going to make sure that we're educating children for the future, especially with AI coming. But I'm also going to attack the segregation that we have going on in the state. My opponent doesn't care about that. He just wants to talk about the schools, but has not come forward with any solution for the segregation. I care about both. That's what I'm going to do as governor.
One final word.
We could integrate the Newark school system tomorrow, and it's not going to improve student performance. We need to change the curriculum.
Final thought, Mikey Sherrill, before our next
I think
question.
you heard again that he has no intention of addressing the segregation in this state.
We're going to move on next to Micah Rasmussen, and that question goes to Mikey Sherrill.
A child died of measles in the United States last week, and we have counties in New Jersey like Ocean where the vaccination rates have now fallen below what's required to maintain herd immunity. Should New Jersey parents be worried?
Yes. New Jersey parents should be very worried. We just had back to school, so many of the parents know there's a lot going around. Imagine if it was polio right now. We have, I think, over 10 cases of measles so far this year in New Jersey. We are the most densely populated state in the nation. If we are not going to ensure proper vaccinations for our kids, vaccines that have been going on over 50 years and have all but eradicated things like measles, mumps, rubella, and polio. Now we have babies dying of pertussis or whooping cough because people aren't getting their vaccines. These are eminently curable diseases, and we are allowing children to get sick and, yes, die because we are not appropriately following medical research, vaccine protocol, and as governor of this state, I'm joining the Northeast group of governors that is going to ensure that we follow medical guidelines and keep our kids safe.
The rise in things like measles, mumps, whooping cough, and the like are very, very concerning. And once we fall below the threshold for herd immunity, it's of great concern in the community. And so I support the vaccine schedule with regard to measles, mumps, rubella, whooping cough, polio, on down the line. We've got to get above the threshold for herd immunity to keep our communities safe. The obligation of any governor on day one after they take their oath of office is the public health and safety. And we'll do that under Governor Chattarelli. I just wish my opponent showed the same concern when it came to biological males participating in female sports. We should be protecting all students.
30 seconds. 30. Please do.
You know, it's really interesting. I've been hearing around the state. I've spoken to thousands and thousands of people. I've been to all 21 counties, and I keep hearing around the state, Jack Chattarelli will tell anybody whatever they want to hear. And I think we just saw that tonight. Because he hasn't actually stood up for vaccines. He hasn't stood against RFK. He hasn't mentioned anything about firing the head of the CDC. He doesn't mention anything about how Trump's appointee gets most of his medical information on TikTok and Reels. This is not somebody who's going to keep our kids healthy.
Jack Ciattarelli.
The Congresswoman is right about one thing. I do get up and down this state. 564 towns, 21 counties, North, Central, South, and Jersey Shore. I'm actually pleasantly surprised to see her tonight. I thought I might see a surrogate. So, if you want to talk about getting up and down the state, if you want this job, interview for the job, get up and down the state.
As I mentioned, I've been all up and down the state speaking to thousands of people. And once again, what he doesn't want to address is the fact that he will never stand up against Trump. He will let our costs continue to rise. He will let our kids get unsafe and unhealthy. He won't stand up. He said he's not taking this administration to court in any way, shape, or form. Well, they are driving a $5 billion hole in our budget, and the way we claw that money back is by taking them to court.
We ask our audience to please be quiet. Jack Ciattarelli, you have the last word before our next question.
Well, listen, no Republican in this state's had a more independent streak than I have. I've called on national prominent Republicans to resign over their rhetoric. I called on Chris Christie to resign. I've always been independent. I'm going to stand up for the people of New Jersey every day of the week. Their party's been in control for 25 years, and they've had the executive branch for 8 years. But you don't hear her, you don't hear my opponent criticizing the current administration or the 25-year reign of the Democrats.
All right, I'm really regretting not bringing my bell tonight to ring on the audience. We love your enthusiasm, but we want to give our candidates as much time as possible, so we're going to move on. David Wildstein has the next question, and that is going to Jack Ciattarelli.
Thank you. Both of you have at some point in discussing the state's finances said that all options are on the table. So I want to ask you about an increase in the sales tax. Are you willing to commit to not raise the sales tax if you become governor? And obviously I'm looking for a yes or a no, but I know that sometimes I'm disappointed in getting just the one-word answers.
Whose turn is it first, Laura?
Jack Ciattarelli.
We are not raising the sales tax here in New Jersey. What we need to do is lower the income tax and the property tax here in New Jersey. Those are the most burdensome taxes we pay. Pennsylvania's flat tax is 3% on personal income. Our highest bracket is 10.75. Pennsylvania's property taxes on average are $3,000 less per home than ours. What is it that Pennsylvania is doing that we're not? They give Republicans control from time to time. I think that's what they do in Pennsylvania. Listen, it took us 238 years to get the $36 billion budget. In 8 years, we went from $36 billion to $59 billion. Can anybody tell me their life is better off than it was 8 years ago? Has anything gotten better? I've been here for 64 years. 64 years. I never remember it being this bad. The affordability crisis, look at your property tax bill, look at your monthly electric bill. Public safety, public education, overdevelopment, and the worst place in the country to do business. That's why we are where we are today.
64 years, and for over half that time, he's been raising taxes on all of us. You know, I can see why your career as a CPA was so short-lived, because your math just doesn't add up, Jack. So that's why, as we look at a $5 billion hole that we're facing from the federal government, as we're working hard to make sure that we're paying into pensions, at least one of us, to make sure that people have the hard-earned dollars that they've earned over time, as we're working to make sure that we have the best public school system in the nation, I'm not going to commit to anything right now, because I'm not just going to tell you what you want to hear. Now, Jack raises sales tax all the time, and yet tonight he said this because, like we know, he'll tell you whatever you want to hear. Well, I'm going to tell you the truth. I'm going to be fiscally responsible with your money. I'm going to drive down your costs at every level, and I'm going to make sure your kids have great opportunities here in the state of New Jersey.
So in some of her ads, and again tonight, she's implying that I've been a career politician. Here's what she never tells you. I've term limited myself every single time. And at the municipal and county level, I didn't take the salary or the benefits. She never tells you those things. I call for term limits in my platform. And everywhere I've been, I have fought to save people taxes in this state, and I'll do it as your governor.
So I do like the revisionist history. Because most people in New Jersey know that the reason Jack didn't run for re-election is because he knew he was going to lose. But nevertheless, it doesn't matter. Hey, we have kids in here. It doesn't matter because I'm going to make sure that he doesn't get to serve again when I win for governor in November of this year.
There's another big difference between her public service and my public service. It actually cost me money the time I put in and took away from my company. In the 7 years that she's been in Congress, she's tripled her net worth. There's another big difference between the two of us, okay? She broke the law. She had to pay fines for violating federal law on stock trades and stock reporting, and the New York Times reports that while you're sitting on the House Armed Services Committee, you were trading defense stocks.
Jack knows.
Final word, Mikey Sherrill.
Jack knows, and all of you can confirm, that I don't trade individual stocks. He knows this because it's all public. And in fact, there have been articles written about how transparent and ethical I've been, going above and beyond the requirements in Congress. And I continue to do that. In fact, I've run the most transparent governor's race that we've seen in this state.
Now, I know we could probably continue with any of these topics all night long, but we're going to get back to our audience. Our next question comes from Tom from Princeton. And this question is going to Mikey Sherrill first.
New Jersey's combined pension and employee health care funding shortfalls exceed $100 billion, and the annual expense for these items consumes over 20% of New Jersey's annual budget. Yet the pension plans remain severely underfunded. How would you address these deficits? How would you improve pension security? And would you pursue any structural reforms?
Thanks. So, for decades, people have used fuzzy math. It's been a bipartisan thing for governors to not fully fund the pension. So now we're working to fully fund it, but we're paying $7 billion to do so. New York, which runs a far bigger pension system because they've managed that well, is only paying about $1.5 billion. So if we don't focus on funding this pension, we are mortgaging the future for our children. These are hard-earned benefits that people have paid into, but the state hasn't funded it appropriately. So we've got to stop taking pension holidays. We have to make sure we're working to drive down the cost there. We have to continue to ensure that we are driving up the state's credit rating, as we're doing by making sure our pension is solvent. So in all of these ways, we can drive down costs for people while taking care of our teachers, our firefighters, our cops, the people in the state who serve us. We now need to make sure we're taking care of them.
Tom, the governor and the Democrats like to boast about the fact that they've made a full pension payment 5 years in a row. But while they were making a full pension payment, what they were doing is underfunding the state health care plan. And look what's happened today. It's on the verge of collapse. And employees that work for the state, school districts, municipalities, and counties that are in the state health plan, that includes teachers, are going home with less take-home pay, despite getting a 2, 3, 4% increase. It's all about priorities. We do not have a short-term liquidity problem when it comes to funding our post-retirement health care benefit or a pension. We've got a very long-term solvency problem. The priorities today are the ones that need our attention. And the priorities today for me are property taxes, income taxes, and making sure we get the state health care plan under control, because right now it's crushing the middle class that are in that plan. We've got to fund the state health care plan.
Okay, did you want...
What you didn't hear was that he was going to fund your pensions.
Final thought.
We are going to fund your pension. Anybody that's earned a pension is going to get their pension. But right now, you don't pay. If you're in the working right now, you don't pay your grocery or your rent or your mortgage with your pension if you're working right now. You don't pay your groceries with your pension. You pay it with your net pay. And our public workers are going home with significantly less pay right now because the state health care plan is under siege. It's about to collapse.
Okay, we're going to go back over to this side. Our next question is coming to... We need to move our camera out of the way for just a minute. Oh, little collision there. It's all good. O is from Lawrenceville, and she is a professor here at Rider University.
Okay.
And this goes to Jack Chitterelli.
All right. Do you plan to add more AI guardrail laws? If yes, what would they be?
Very good. Thank you for that question. So, we talk an awful about AI as an economic development opportunity, but what you never hear the governor talk about are the things that concern the public: social manipulation, job loss. These are two very important considerations that we need to talk about as well. Now, I'm not a computer science expert. I'm not an AI expert, but I tell you what I will do. We're going to sit down with people in the arena, in that space, and talk about how we protect people from the social manipulation. And I also want to talk about the job loss that comes with AI. Those are the things that have people terribly insecure about this new technology. So I'm going to look to get our state government in the 21st century. We've got, in some departments, databases that are kept on Excel, and in Treasury, I have desktop systems that are on DOS. DOS. Now, there's a whole lot of college students here tonight that don't know what the hell DOS is, but I get the sense that you do, okay? This is a dysfunctional state government in so many different ways. So we need to leverage new technologies by AI, but we also need to know the dangers of AI, and as governor, I will.
Yes, I'm going to put guardrails around AI. We have a change coming, and we are not all prepared in the way we should be for it. It's why I'm going to implement the Kids Online Safety Act to make sure that our kids are safe. It's why I'm going to make sure that when we make some of these county-based schools, they're schools like occupational schools and STEM schools. So we're pushing into the jobs of the future because we know AI is going to have huge reverberations through the job market. I'm going to make sure that we are changing and addressing our technology here in this state as we move into some of the AI fixes, but also the protections we need for privacy and for people's data. We've already had problems. I have had a family come to me with a deep fake where their daughter's head was put on some pornography in her high school. Imagine that as a teenager. So we need to do more to put guardrails around AI, to protect our kids, to ensure we're growing into the jobs of the future, and to ensure that we do better as a state. Thank you.
Our next question is coming from Mitchell from Byram. He is a student here at Rider University, and this question is going to Mikey Sherrill.
As someone who is a student teacher currently at Fisher Middle School in Ewing, I'm curious as to what you will do as governor to continue to invest in education in New Jersey, given the dismantling of the Federal Department of Education.
That's a great question. And first of all, thank you. I have a middle schooler, so you're doing the Lord's work. I have to tell you. And they don't always shower as much as they should. So thank you. Thank you very much. Yes, the dismantling of the Department of Ed is a huge issue. This is one of the ways in which we're seeing a huge hit come into our state budget. It's why I fought so hard to say that we're going to claw back that money. My attorney general is going to sue to claw back as much money from the federal government as we can. We pay $70 billion more into the federal government than we get back as a state. So if they're not going to run their programs, they just need to send that money back so we can run them. And this is a real difference between myself and my opponent, who says he doesn't disagree with anything Trump's doing and that he's never going to sue him.
So what matters most in a child's education is that teacher, that family, who I hope is supporting the teacher and making sure the student's doing everything when they get home. You know how difficult it is to teach if parents aren't fulfilling their responsibility, and of course that student. And the point I'm trying to make is the farther away you get from the classroom, the less impact I think any governmental institution has on what's taking place in the classroom and student learning. So I don't necessarily have a problem with the president and the administration downsizing the Department of Education. Just because they got rid of the Department of Education doesn't mean they got rid of federal funding. The funding is still coming, okay? And I'll fulfill my obligation as governor to make sure that our schools are fully funded, but we need a new public school curriculum to get our kids back on track, and we need more vocational training opportunities. That's what matters most in the academic development of our students.
Do you want to respond?
I just want to make sure I correct some misunderstandings up here. Yeah, they did get rid of a lot of federal funding. They got rid of it at every level of education. They got rid of it for funding for our colleges and universities with Pell Grants and with research and development funds. They got rid of it when they limited the amount of money you can take on as a student loan to such a small amount that many people now can't go to medical school who thought they were going to medical school. They've limited on for our Title I schools that we're seeing. So in almost every level, The federal government right now has limited the money that they're sending back to New Jersey for education. And as a state who spends so much money to the federal government, that's offensive.
Two things. My attorney general will not be wasting your tax dollars suing the White House every other day. It's a waste of taxpayer dollars. Number two, if we want to get more money out of the federal government, the way to do that is by the governor calling to task our 14 members of our congressional delegation. 2 U.S. senators and 12 House members. I'll meet with them every single month to make sure that the 15 of us are working on behalf of New Jersey. That doesn't happen right now. We got the governor and a 14-member delegation, congressional delegation, all run in different directions. They should be together to advocate for New Jersey.
Okay, our next question is going to come. We're going to have to move on with the debate here. Our next question is coming from Charles. Charles is a writer, alumni, and this is going to Jack Chitterelli first.
To make housing more affordable, it's accepted we have to increase its supply. That said, we know that when voters hear more housing, they become concerned about overcrowding schools. Would you support a state bond referendum to give the Schools Development Authority the funding to build new schools throughout the state?
No. What I will support is to make sure that government is working in partnership with the private sector to make sure that there's more affordable housing. And by the way, we need to stop. Right now, affordable housing is all rental. We need more lease to purchase opportunities. The next generation is doing nothing but renting because that's all we're forcing down their throat. And the reason I say that, Charles, is because I want to stop with us developing high-density housing in every one of our 564 towns. I want to use the shortage of affordable housing to get people to live in our urban centers again. I live in downtown Somerville. This town has gone through a magnificent transformation because we've gone up with low, moderate, and market rate units, and it's vibrant. What we're doing in Somerville is what we need to do on a much larger scale in Newark, in Trenton, and in Atlantic City. We've got to stop the exacerbation of sprawl. Anybody that's concerned about the environment should not be doing this. And by the way, you want the poster child? Why are we condemning a 175-year-old farm in Cranberry? Why are we condemning open space to build more high-density housing? I don't think so.
So that's a great question. I think what we all see here is too much of the money we spend on our education system is not going to the things we want it to go to. So for example, number one, students, educators, buildings, and we know how necessary it is because I'll tell you in Montclair, we had the stairway fall in high school. People couldn't go to school for several months. In Patterson, we've had the ceiling fall in an elementary school. So we have some of the oldest school inventory. We have to address it. But unfortunately, so much of the money is going to a bloated administration right now. We need to move that money into the places that we want to address. But you've also raised something about our state that I think is important, and that is about how we're going to develop it. And what we really need to do is have a statewide plan to protect our open spaces, because many of us know how deeply we really enjoyed them during COVID and how necessary it is for the health and mental wellness. That's why I've been a person at the Great Swamp Gala, as I've spoken there about how important open spaces are. So we need to do both, develop and have our open spaces preserved.
Laura, may we?
Very quickly, because we need to move on to our next question.
This is refreshing. I think what she might be saying is we're not going to develop high-density housing in every one of the 564 towns. But the other thing is she didn't answer your question. The answer is no. If we did that, it's only going to exacerbate sprawl. But she didn't answer your question.
Again, that's not true. I was very clear on how I think we should spend the money.
Okay, we're going to move on then to Michelle from Byram. She is a parent of a Rider University student. And Michelle, are you over here? Or is she over here? Hello, Michelle. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Okay, Michelle, you have you're a parent of a Rider student, and your question is going to Jack Chitterelli.
Hi, Michelle.
With Medicaid cuts looming, how will you protect services for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities?
So I said before, the first job and responsibility of any governor is to provide for the public health and safety, and that certainly applies most of all to our most vulnerable population, our most vulnerable citizens, who under Governor Chitterelli will never be underserved. We're going to take care of our citizens, particularly those most in need, and that includes our developmentally disabled. Let's talk about the Medicaid reforms, because this is another one of those things that's being lied about in the community. The two big changes in the Medicaid system are these. The reforms are these. You have to verify your eligibility twice a year now, not once a year. Twice a year. Interestingly enough, it was President Barack Obama that put that change in place. President Trump kept it in his first term. Joe Biden put it to once a year. The other thing you have to do with the Medicaid reform is if you're able-bodied and your children are 15 years of age or older, you have to provide us with 20 hours a week in order to continue with Medicaid. 20 hours of what? Volunteerism, education, or work. I think that's reasonable. My opponent doesn't seem to have any issue with people who are scamming the system. If you want the system to endure, we need to save dollars by stopping people from scamming it. I think those two reforms, if you meet those two criteria, which I think are reasonable, guess what? Medicaid doesn't get cut. You continue to have your Medicaid. But as governor, I'll take care of our most vulnerable citizens, and that includes developmentally disabled. You have my word.
Thanks, Michelle. I love that Jack thinks he's going to run the federal delegation when he doesn't understand federal legislation. But we'll save that for another day. This is a question I get from so many parents because they know what's going on with Medicaid and they know the deep funding cuts that are going on that are imperiling many of the programs that support their children. And so that's why, as governor, I'm going to make sure my IG is fighting this tooth and nail, because here's the truth. I was recently at a federally qualified health center in Camden. And I have to tell you, traditionally, that's been one of the poorest cities in our state. So we were moving away from emergency room care, which is both the most expensive kind of care and also the care that goes to charity care in our state budget, not the federal Medicaid dollars. And she was telling me how much their costs were going to go up, about 20% more in going through the red tape and bureaucracy that the Trump administration is implementing instead of going to care for people. She said so many of the people are now going to be going back to emergency room care, which will be very expensive for the state.
I think the fair question of any gubernatorial candidate, and obviously that includes my opponent, is this. Do you believe it's fair to make somebody have to verify their eligibility for Medicaid twice a year? Do you believe it's fair to continue your Medicaid by giving us 20 hours a week of education, volunteerism, or work if you're able-bodied and your kids are 15 or older? I believe that's fair. You meet that criteria, Medicaid continues.
Final thoughts, Mikey Sherrill.
So it's not about fairness. It's about cost effectiveness. It's about who's going to drive down the cost for the state by making sure we're going into better and cheaper care, like in federally qualified health centers, or are we going to go back to the bad old days when we're sending everybody to emergency room care, which is both worse care and more expensive care?
Okay, we have one more question for our audience before we go back to our panel. It is one of our younger members of the audience. Mark, he is a middle school student from Bridgewater, and Mark's question is going to go first to Jack Chittarelli.
I'm only 12, but I've already seen one of our U.S. senators go to prison. What's your vision for restoring public trust in government?
No thank you. First of all, congratulations on being here tonight and having the courage to stand up and ask a question. Leadership matters, and it starts at the top. So I've never broken the law. My opponent has. I've never broken the law. And so you don't have to worry about that, and we'll set the tone for the way that public service ought to be. And we'll call out anybody on either side of the aisle that does the wrong thing, either if they're self-serving or if they're breaking the law. So, and my attorney general will be very, very aggressive in looking at public corruption all up and down the state. But thank you for your question.
Thank you so much for your question. And you have a great mom bringing you here tonight. So thank you for being here. You know, I think this is the key question. I go around the state and I tell people, this is the most nonpartisan race I've run because I think people have lost a lot of faith in both parties. And it's really important right now in this race that here in New Jersey, in this state, as we're holding the line, that we're restoring faith. So that's why I talk a lot about being a Navy helicopter pilot, because I think people know what that means. I think they know that I've always served this country and I'm proud of it. I also talk about being a mom, because I think that also lets people know why I'm doing this and who I'm fighting for and what I care about. And so I have constantly and consistently listened to as many people as possible to make sure I'm hearing just what it is that people need to sleep at night. How can I, as governor, make that a little bit easier? And what I hear is the cost of housing is too high, electricity costs are too high, utility costs are too high, and I want somebody to protect my rights and freedoms. And that's what I'll do as governor.
We're going to go back to our panel. Our next question is coming from Micah Rasmussen, and that is going to Jack Chitterelli.
It's been more than 20 years since the last fixed DMV. Yet the
I'm sorry, Micah, the last
fixed DMV, the last fix for DMV. Yet the agency still has not returned to full in-person service since 5 years, since it's now 5 years after COVID. It's still disenfranchising voters when it botches their motor voter registrations and can't keep up with demand for real IDs. So what does the fixed DMV of 2026 need to look like?
So in any gubernatorial campaign, we're going to end up talking about education reforms and policy, property tax reform and policy, public safety, housing, all the like. But what's easy to overlook is that the state of New Jersey now is a $59 billion enterprise with 60,000 employees, 9.3 million citizen customers, and 1 million business customers, small, medium, and large. And one of the reasons I'm running is because I feel very strongly this state needs a hands-on CEO governor who's going to show up every damn day and make sure that this state government works for its citizens. You can walk into a DMV office tomorrow in Florida and walk out an hour later with your real ID. Call DMV today in New Jersey for your appointment. They're putting you off until December. I find that embarrassing. So I and my administration can show up every single day and make sure that this state government works on behalf of its citizens. And that means executive order number 2. And executive order number 2 is everyone's coming back to work. They work for us. Let's make this state government work for our citizens.
You know, this is a difference between myself and my opponent, because I am willing to take on anyone, including members of my own party, when it comes to serving the people of New Jersey. He's not. He just serves Trump. But that's why I'll tell you right now that our MVC is not working. It is not working. We were worst in the nation for real ID. You couldn't get, when people were being told, go get a passport. It'll be quicker. And that is the one way in which so many people interact with our government. And so if you're asking, how do we build trust in government? How do we rebuild faith in government? We make sure government's working. And so I'm going to make sure that MVC is working for everyone, that you can go and you do most of what you need to do online. You don't always have to go in person. And then when you go in person, you can get an appointment quickly and you can get through the process quickly, in and out. That if you need an inspection, you can get your car inspected. And so all of these things are the ways in which almost every person in this state engages with our state government. And almost everyone in this state has a really bad story to tell you about it. Not on my watch. I'll fix that as governor.
Our next question comes from Sophie Nieto Munoz, and it goes to Mikey Sherrill.
The Immigrant Trust Directive has limited local, county, and state police from assisting in civil immigration enforcement since it was put in place in 2018. If elected governor, would you continue the Immigrant Trust Directive?
As governor, I'm going to make sure here in New Jersey, we're following the law and the Constitution. And let me tell you a little bit about what's going on right now. I just had a friend talk to a police officer here who had an interaction with somebody who was wearing a mask, who had no ID and was carrying. And he walked up to him and said, look, this is my town. What are you doing here? And the gentleman said, I don't have to tell you. And he said, you're walking around my town and you do have to tell me. And he said, no, I don't. And so the police officer said, well, then I'll take you to jail. And he said, I'll take you to jail. So he said, we'll work it out in jail. But here's the thing. It was an ICE agent refusing to show ID, masked. So as governor, I'm going to make sure that people can't go around masked here in our state. Now, my opponent supports policies where people who are here legally can be detained, rolling back rights for American citizens, separating children and parents. I'm going to make sure people here in this state are safe and follow the law.
Congresswoman, can you clarify? Is that a yes or no on would you continue the Immigrant Trust Directive?
What I'm going to do is make sure we're following the law and the Constitution. So that'll include due process rights and the Constitution.
Jack Chitterelli.
I don't think she answered your question. Executive order number 1 on day 1, we're getting rid of the Immigrant Trust Directive here in New Jersey. I said this back in 2021. I'll say it here again. I've said it every single day I'm out on the campaign trail. I believe the Immigrant Trust Directive, us having sanctuary cities, us being a sanctuary state, only encourages illegal immigration and restricts our local law enforcement in a number of different ways. The goal here is to keep our community safe. And the best way to do that is us not having sanctuary cities. Let me say something else. My Attorney General, unlike the current Attorney General, who I think she has said she's considering reappointing, my Attorney General will support local law enforcement. We're not getting rid of qualified immunity. She voted to get rid of it in the Congress. We're not doing that. We're going to take the handcuffs off, let these trained professionals do their job. Flash mobs on our Jersey Shore, flash mobs in our malls, break-ins, car thefts, nonviolent crime is through the roof. Did anybody see what went down in Secaucus 3 weeks ago? Total disregard for law and order, total disregard for law enforcement. We got to get back to being a law and order state with safe communities.
Thank you, Cheryl.
So I've served as a federal prosecutor. I've ensured that we're working hard to drive down crime in this state. I've prosecuted people who were criminals here and who were undocumented, and they were deported because I care deeply about public safety for the people here. And I think we can all agree that violent criminals should be deported. But what I also believe deeply in is due process, the due process rights that are in our Constitution.
Time is up.
And so I'll follow the law and I'll follow the Constitution.
Getting rid of the Immigrant Trust Directives doesn't mean we're violating your constitutional right to due process. But since she brought up her time as a U.S. attorney, check her record. In the 11 months that she was supposed to be prosecuting cases, she pled most of her cases, and people that committed some pretty heinous crimes were allowed to go free.
All right, our very last question.
So I'll repeat. I'm very proud of my prosecutorial record. I worked really hard to take illegal guns off the street, to make sure our streets were safe. Jack has never served in law enforcement. He's never served to keep this country safe. I have, and I'll continue to do that.
One more question of this evening, and it comes from David Wildstein. David Wildstein has the final question, and it goes first to Jack Chitterelli.
Laura, I'm going to throw you a little bit of a curveball.
You're throwing me. Oh, you're asking more than one question.
He's a baseball fan, that's why.
Yeah, but
It happens.
So.
Oh, is it a question for
I
me?
had a closing question.
Oh, you had a closing question.
But there's a man here named Tom who came to ask a question who, quite frankly, his question's more important than mine. I'd like to give him my time.
Oh, you want to go back to Tom?
I want to go to Tom. I don't
Okay.
know
I can go to Tom. Hold on. We had two Toms.
So,
Let me go back.
Sorry.
Tom. Okay. So, Tom, I'm going to go back to you, and I don't have my cue card. So, Tom,
I am
who are you?
also a Tom from Princeton.
Very
so
good. Yes, there's two Toms from Princeton.
Thank you both for doing this. Let's see you do more of this, please. Who am I addressing?
Oh, so this is going to go first to Jack Chitterelli.
Jack, please describe New Jersey's current state of care for residents with severe and persistent mental illness, the reasons why it is so, and your proposals as governor to address it.
So, Tom, I would like to do more of this. By law, we have to do 2. CBS News out of New York invited us to a 3rd. I agreed. My opponent did not. Let me say this. We know we have a mental health crisis, and I'm proud of what we did in Somerset County. We created the first public-private partnership, and it was a 24/7 community mental health center because we saw what was going on in the community, and people could not get access, convenient access to high-quality mental health services. So we actually employed in county government in New Jersey psychiatrists, psychologists, licensed clinical social workers. People had a place to go. It didn't matter what your coverage was. You got quality service. As governor, there are 2 things we should not be approaching 564 towns at a time. I think our county governments across the state are underappreciated and underleveraged. We'll put a plan in place the state will fund for there to be a community mental health center in every one of our 21 counties and a homeless shelter. We need that here, and you can't expect us to address that 564 towns at a time. So I think we need to use the Somerset County model to provide for community mental health clinics all across New Jersey so people have convenient access to high-quality mental health services.
Tom, thanks for raising this question because as I've sort of mentioned already tonight, we have a mental health crisis. We have a loneliness crisis. I see it in our kids. I see it in seniors. I see it across this state. people who aren't connecting anymore. And so that's why this is so important, and we need to add resources. I've added federal resources to the Mental Health Association of Morris and Essex. I'll continue to work hard to fund the different programs that we have, making sure that we also put in place things like red flag laws, so people like many of our veterans who are contemplating suicide can be protected by those, and keep those red flag laws as the courts attack them and people like Jack Ciattarelli vote against them. I'll also make sure that as we have our police officers going out, we use the Arrive Together program. In talking to so many of our police officers, they don't have the tools or the training sometimes to handle some of the most egregious mental health problems, and it often creates really bad outcomes. Thank you.
Tom, the one other thing that we need to do, and I will instigate as a member of the National Governors Association, I think it's long overdue, it's time for us to get rid of the Medicaid reimbursement rates. Community physicians will tell you off the record they won't see Medicaid patients, many of which have mental health issues. We need to start reimbursing at one rate, the Medicare rate. Community physicians find that acceptable. They do not find the Medicaid rate acceptable. So let's work together with our congressional delegation, the other 49 governors, to start reimbursing at one rate. Let's move everybody into Medicare, one rate, which community physicians find acceptable, and people will have better access as well.
Tom, you're really on the hot seat. But I think what we also need to do is add money to housing. Many mental health professionals will say what you first need to do is stabilize people in housing and have wraparound services from there. Thanks.
All right, that concludes our question and answer time. It is time now to go to closing statements. Each candidate has 30 seconds. Our first candidate going for our closing statements, that is going to go to Mikey Sherrill. You have 90 seconds.
Well, thank you so much, everybody. I really appreciate it. This has been a great debate, and I think you've heard some clear differences here. I've served this country my entire life. As I mentioned, helicopter pilot, prosecutor, member of Congress, and mom of 4 great kids. I'm going to continue to serve this state because I want to drive down your costs. So whether it's utility costs or housing costs or energy costs, you've heard again and again and again, I have a plan to drive down your costs. Jack's going to go a lot in lockstep with Washington as Trump drives up your energy costs. So at every level, I'll continue to work for you. And at every level, he'll raise your costs like he's done at every level of government with taxes. So I really appreciate all of you coming out tonight to hear about this. This has been a great evening, and thank you once again, New Jersey. I appreciate it.
90 seconds. You have 90 seconds.
The Ciattarellis have been here for 100 years. 3 generations of Ciattarellis have all achieved their American dream right here in New Jersey. My grandfather started out in the ditch as a laborer, saved his nickels and dimes, became a very successful independent contractor. My parents were successful restaurant bar owners, but that wasn't their only job. My mom worked midnights on the line for J&J. My dad was in the street department for public service gas. Every dime they made went to their family, the roof over our head, clothes on our back, meal on a table, and our public school education. I followed in my grandparents' and parents' footsteps. I'm a 2-time successful business owner here in the state of New Jersey, having created jobs. I've also had the privilege of serving at every level of government, municipal, county, and legislature. Term limiting myself each time, not taking the salary or the benefits at the municipal or county level. I'm an MBA CPA. No candidate has ever come before you with that resume. And so I'm committed to fixing our state. When something I love is broken, I want to fix it. I believe leadership matters. I believe that we can fix the state of New Jersey, or I wouldn't be asking you for your consideration. We can do this. But I want you to know this. Unlike governors on both sides of the aisle over the last 40 years, I'm not using this to get to Washington. This is my final destination. When my 4 or 8 years are over, you'll find me at the beach in Surf City, okay? But I'll give you 4 or 8 years of the best years of my life, and we'll work in partnership with the legislature, and we'll get things done, and we'll fix the state of New Jersey. Thank you very, very much.
Okay, that concludes tonight's debate. On behalf of the New Jersey Globe, on New Jersey and Rider University, thank you for joining us for this historic evening. We want to keep everybody in their seats for just a moment. A special thank you as well to the campaigns and to the candidates themselves, Mikey Sherrill and Jack Ciattarelli, for taking part in this important conversation about New Jersey's future. We also want to thank our presenting sponsor, O'Toole Scrivo, and the New Jersey Election Law Enforcement Commission for designating this debate. We also thank our panelists, David Wildstein, Sophie, Nacho Munoz and Micah Rasmussen for their thoughtful questions. A special thank you to the Rider University community, to our audience here at Alumni Gymnasium, and also our viewers across New Jersey, and to C-SPAN for bringing this debate to audiences across America. And we appreciate our other sponsors, Horizon Blue Cross Blue Shield of New Jersey, RWJ Barnabas Health, and Prudential Financial, PSEG Audible, Johnson & Johnson, the New Jersey Business Industry Association, and McCarter English and Mercury. We thank the Rider Department of Public Safety, as well as the Mercer County Sheriff, Jack Kimler, Lawrence Township Police Department, and the New Jersey State Police for keeping this debate safe and secure. And to our viewers, don't go anywhere. We want you to stay with On New Jersey, the New Jersey Globe, and Rider University for our post-debate roundup with Brian Thompson and Joey Fox. You're also going to have the opportunity to hear from the candidates. We're not done. You're going to hear from the candidates themselves as they answer questions from the media. The Lieutenant Governor debate is scheduled for Tuesday, September 30th at 7 p.m. That's sponsored by Pix 11 and PHL TV, Kane University, and New Jersey 101.5. The second Jack Chitterelli, Mikey Sherrill debate is going to be held on Wednesday, October 8th at 7 p.m., sponsored by ABC 7 and WPVI. I'm Laura Jones. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great night.
Tonight, two candidates vying to lead New Jersey into a new era. Republican Jack Chitterelli and Democrat Mikey Sherrill. New Jersey's next chapter is decided by you. Live from the New Brunswick Performing Arts Center and Rutgers University, the 2025 New Jersey gubernatorial debate. Your voice, your vote. Sponsored by ABC 7 in New York, WPVI 6 ABC in Philadelphia, the Edward J. Blaustein School of Planning and Public Policy at Rutgers University, and the New Brunswick Performing Arts Center. Tonight, two visions for Trenton take center stage. Our candidates are Republican Jack Chitterelli and Democrat Mikey Sherrill. And now, Action News anchor Tamala Edwards and Eyewitness News anchor Bill Ritter.
And good evening, everyone, and welcome to this debate between the Republican and Democratic candidates for governor of New Jersey. I'm Bill Ritter.
And I'm Tamala Edwards. Over the next hour, the candidates will answer questions from Bill and myself, as well as questions from our media partner, Univision. The candidates will also answer some questions that were submitted by voters through an online questionnaire.
Now, the debate was awarded by the New Jersey Election Law Enforcement Commission. Gubernatorial candidates are mandated to participate in this debate under state law as a condition of attempting mutual funding positions under New Jersey's gubernatorial public financing program.
Under the debate rules, the candidate to whom the question is posed will have 1 minute to answer, followed by a 1 minute response from the opposing candidate. The candidate who received the initial question will then receive a 30-second rebuttal. The candidates have agreed to a 30-second opening statement and a 1 minute closing statement at the end of our debate.
Okay, so those are the ground rules. We're going to begin with the candidates' opening statements, and by prior draw, it all is going to start with Jack Chitterelli. Sir?
New Jersey, we need change. We need an honest, qualified, hands-on CEO governor who will bring that change. Why? We have an overdevelopment crisis in our suburban communities. We have an affordability crisis because of property taxes and electricity bills. We have a public safety crisis because we don't let our police do their jobs any longer. We have a public education crisis because we've watered down the public school curriculum. Tonight, I'll give you a plan and very specific policy proposals on how to fix all the things that makes New Jersey so broken. I look forward to tonight's debate.
Congresswoman Mikey Sherrill.
Good evening, New Jersey. My name's Mikey Sherrill. I have a different kind of background, so I'll be a different kind of governor. Navy helicopter pilot, federal prosecutor, member of Congress, and mom of 4 kids. I am laser focused on driving down your costs, making New Jersey more affordable. I'm going to start by declaring a state of emergency on energy costs, make government more accountable to you, making it safer and more affordable. And I'm going to ensure that I am always fighting for all of you.
All right. It is now time to turn to the questions, and we're going to begin with you, Congresswoman Sherrill. According to the World Population Review, it costs 14% more to live in New Jersey compared to the rest of the nation. And it touches on so many issues, including gas, groceries, and housing. What are 3 specific things that you would do to ease that burden?
You know, I constantly hear about this from voters. So that's why on day 1, I'm declaring a state of emergency on energy prices, freezing rate hikes. I'm going to take on the PBMs. Those are those middlemen that can drive up drug prices up to 10 times, driving down your health care costs. And I'm going to ensure that I'm taking on those landlords that are colluding to drive up your rental prices. So housing, health care, utility costs, immediately get to work driving down your costs. And quite frankly, we know my opponent won't do it because his #1 donor is somebody who's actually under investigation for driving up those rental costs. So I'm going to continue to fight for New Jerseyans, and my opponent just won't.
Mr. Chitterelli.
My opponent has put forth an illegitimate plan that isn't feasible. Even the governor, a member of her own party, has said that, I don't really think you can do that. There are 77 incumbent Democratic legislators, 52 of which are on the ballot this year, and not one has endorsed her plan. To get electricity rates down on day 1, I will pull us out of Reggie. The Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative is a carbon tax policy that has cost New Jersey $300 to $500 million a year for homeowners, tenants, and businesses, and it's been a failure. Electricity is at its all-time high, the air is no cleaner, and ratepayer dollars are going to other states. So we can provide some relief on day 1. We also have to take care of the property tax crisis, something you won't hear my opponent ever talk about. We need a new school funding formula in New Jersey. With a new school funding formula, we can have a more equitable distribution of state aid, and in so doing, reduce the property tax burden with our local school districts. We also have 2 other things that are driving the affordability crisis in New Jersey. Housing. We need more affordable housing. We just need to be smart about the way we do it. Another thing that's driving the affordability crisis is childcare. And I have a specific plan on how to relieve that burden for families with young children.
So none of that is actually going to drive down costs for anyone here, and that's no surprise because my opponent has voted against over $1 billion in property tax relief for people. He's voted to raise taxes at every level of government in which he's served, and he continues to propose different actions that will raise taxes on the people of New Jersey.
Okay, thank you for that.
Bill, our rules are no rebuttals.
No double rebuttals. Yes, there's not the second one. But I'm going to go to you first, Mr. Chitterelli, and talk about property tax because New Jersey has one of the highest property tax rates in the country. We know that, more than $10,000 a year for the average person. Many residents remain limited by the federal government about how much they can actually deduct per year. Not long ago, as we all know, it was 100% deductible. Now it's a fraction of that. Given that, would you lower New Jersey's property tax? It sounded like your opponent did not think you would.
We need a new school funding formula. Anyone who's from New Jersey would know that anywhere from 15 to 20% of your property tax bill is municipal taxes, 15 to 20% are county taxes, but anywhere from 60 to 70% could be the school tax. And the reason why the school tax is so high in New Jersey is because of the way we distribute state aid to our schools. We need a new school funding formula. But there are other things that we can do to relieve the property tax burden. For example, make all property taxes deductible on the New Jersey tax return. Make all retirement income tax-free. Cap it at 1% for first-time home buyers, 1% of the assessed value of the home. My opponent voted no on the big, beautiful bill. You're now allowed to deduct up to $40,000 of your property taxes on your federal tax return. That, too, lessens the tax burden. So there's a number of different things that we can do. Also in that bill, there was a child care tax credit. There's a credit for private tuition, and it doesn't tax tips, overtime, or Social Security. The big, beautiful bill put more close to $5,000 in the pocket of the average middle-class New Jerseyan. She voted no.
So my opponent likes to talk about how he's from New Jersey, but anybody who's actually fighting for New Jersey would not raise taxes at every single level of government in which he served, voting to raise taxes. He's voted against over $1 billion in property tax relief. He's against tax relief for seniors, and he's for Trump's One Big Beautiful Bill, which would undermine the ability to deduct almost $30 billion taxes from New Jerseyans. So here's the thing. He says he's from New Jersey, but he's not fighting for New Jerseyans. In fact, I'll tell you, I just read an article the other day about how he's voted against even things like giving rapists parental rights. He's voted to give rapists parental rights for the victim of their rape. I can't understand how anybody who wants to be a fighter for New Jersey would ever do something like that.
Mr. Chitterelli, response?
My opponent has been blatantly lying all throughout this campaign, saying they're going to raise the sales tax to 10%. It's a lie. It's not true. We're not raising any taxes in New Jersey. I've talked about very specifically how to lower the income tax and the property tax bill all across New Jersey. At the last debate, when she was asked whether or not she would raise the sales tax, her exact words were, "I'm not going to commit myself to anything right now." That doesn't sound like somebody who's trying to relieve the tax burden in New Jersey, and New Jersey has faced the highest overall tax burden in the country.
Okay, thank you both. Congresswoman, the Chitterelli campaign is asking for the full release of your military records. The National Archives, we know, say it's mistakenly releasing, and it did release, your personal information in those records 2 weeks ago. Since then, there have been questions about why you are not allowed to participate in the graduation ceremonies at the Naval Academy more than 30 years ago. Can you explain to voters why you were not allowed to participate?
Yeah, so I have addressed that. I've said, look, I didn't turn in some of my classmates, so I didn't walk at graduation because I come from an incredibly accountable place. But I went on to graduate. I was commissioned an officer in the United States Navy. I held positions of trust throughout the Navy, both as a helicopter pilot, as a Russian policy officer, as a flag aide to the deputy commander of the U.S. Atlantic Fleet during the Cole bombing and during 9/11. I received numerous awards and commendations, held the highest levels of security clearance. But here's what I think really demands an answer, is why my opponent still won't take accountability for the release of those records. It's under federal investigation that a member of his team, someone he vetted to be his lieutenant governor, actually got access to those records, said he was shocked and disgusted, and yet nevertheless shopped them out to reporters. When he was asked about it, he acted as if he had no idea what his campaign was doing. So either he's really incompetent or he's lying.
Your rebuttal, sir.
At the last debate, Mikey said that she was the most transparent gubernatorial candidate of all time. If she's so transparent, then approve the release of her disciplinary records at the Naval Academy so we can know why it is that she was punished. There was a cheating scandal in the early 1990s while she was there. We know for a fact that she wasn't allowed to participate in the graduation ceremony. We know for a fact that her name was not listed in the commencement exercise program. She says it's because she didn't turn in classmates. That's the honor code at West Point. That's not the honor code at the Naval Academy. You don't get punished for that. I think she was punished for something else. And so I think she needs to come clean. I think the people in New Jersey deserve an answer as to why she was punished at the Naval Academy. And she's trying to create a giant smokescreen for something the National Archives has taken complete responsibility for and apologized for with regard to a Freedom of Information Act request that was perfectly legal. The National Archives has taken responsibility and apologized for what they did.
Congresswoman.
They're having a federal investigation right now into that. But look, we have a federal government under the Trump administration that has released paperwork on tons of people and their Social Security information. Seniors come to me all the time. We have a president who's told governors they have to turn over all of this information, things like voting records and license plate numbers. And we now have a candidate who's turned over all of my information to reporters. I'm certainly not going to open up my classmates' hundreds of records so he can rampage through them on a witch hunt. He should take responsibility. He should turn back those records in which he still holds.
Okay.
Mr. Chitterelli, next question. Your opponent has criticized your connections to President Trump, who has endorsed you. Do you consider yourself part of the MAGA movement? And in this divided state, can you point to one major Trump policy that you support and one that you oppose?
I'm part of a New Jersey movement. We need change in New Jersey. We've got various crises that are raging across the state that are punishing the middle class. The Chitterellis have been here for 100 years. 3 generations of Chitterellis have all owned their own businesses here. I've had the opportunity and privilege to serve at every level of government, terminaling myself each time, more times than not taking the salary or the benefits. I know what's going on in the state of New Jersey. I know what it is that we need to get done. I agree with the president in securing the border. I think that was a matter of national security. And I've said I'll secure New Jersey by us not being a sanctuary state nor having sanctuary cities. I disagree with the president on the Empire Wind Farm off of Long Island. We hope that that doesn't mean there'll be wind farms off our Jersey shore. He's put a temporary halt on that. I will make it permanent when I'm governor. But let me be clear. No matter who it is that's in the White House, my job is to stand up for the 9.3 million citizens of this state, and I will. I will fiercely advocate for them at all times. But let me also say this, that in times of need, it's best to have a relationship with whoever occupies the White House, and I will.
Congresswoman.
He's shown zero signs of standing up to this president. In fact, the president himself called Jack 100% MAGA, and he's shown every sign of being that. He said it's his job to support the president of the United States. I think as governor, it's the job to support the people of New Jersey. I've taken on anyone and everyone, including powerful members of my own party, to fight for people here in New Jersey. Jack won't say one cross word about the president. Even when he froze Gateway Tunnel funding, Jack said that's not a New Jersey problem. Well, I beg to differ, as do the over 200,000 people a day that ride that rail system into that tunnel, especially the people, too, that would get one of the almost 100,000 jobs in the region. That'll cost us $1 million a day, and yet Jack can't stand up to it. He's even said that New Jerseyans should take on a little bit of pain for Trump's tariffs. I don't think so. I actually think we should fight those tariffs, and as governor, I'd join the lawsuit to do just that.
Mr. Chitterelli.
You know, it's interesting. When the pandemic came, our governor, Phil Murphy, who never had anything nice to say about Donald Trump, went down to the White House, had a very nice conversation with him, and got the respirators we needed because our ERs were on overload and people were dying. It's important to have a relationship. And a relationship means respectfully disagreeing when you believe the president's wrong and agreeing to get things done on behalf of New Jersey. One thing that I will do, because New Jersey's been a donor state for decades, is I will harness the energy of our congressional delegation and bring more money back to New Jersey.
We've got a follow-up for both of you, and you'll each have about 15 seconds to answer. And we'll start with you, Mr. Chitterelli. What grade would you give President Trump for his second term?
Right now, I'd certainly give the president an A. I think he's right about everything that he's doing. He has secured the border and the economy. We've got inflation is much lower than it was when Joe Biden was in the White House, and particularly because of what he's done specific to New Jersey. Temporary halt on the wind farms, beating up on New York Democrats over the Gateway over congestion pricing plan, and quadrupling the SALT deduction.
Congresswoman.
Amazing. I think that tells us all we need to know about who Jack Chitterelli's supporting. I'd give him an F. Right now, we see at every single level, costs are going up on New Jerseyans. So whether it's the tariff costs that are costing you more from everything from a cup of coffee to the groceries you buy for dinner at night to the one big beautiful bill, which will raise health care, energy, and housing costs.
While we're giving grades, we're going to continue it, I think, with 30 seconds to answer. Congresswoman, what grade would you give to Governor Murphy?
I'd give him a B. There's things like paying for the pensions. The 9 increases in our credit rating that I like. But overall, I think there's ways Trenton could do a lot better, being much more responsive to people. I'm going to have a culture shift in Trenton. I'm going to make sure that we have more accountability in government, driving down costs for people. I also think with the housing crisis, there's more we need to do to build houses, transit-oriented development, to make sure we can drive those costs down. And then our rail system. I'd fight harder for more infrastructure to make sure more people can get around the state easily.
Mr. Chitterelli.
Bill, it's an F. This has been the worst governorship of our lifetime. And the reason why a number of Democrats all around the state have endorsed my candidacy is because they're fearful of another 4 years of Phil Murphy's policy failures. Take a look at what's happened in New Jersey. We have an affordability crisis because of property taxes, electricity rate, housing, and child care. We have a public education crisis because we watered down the public school curriculum. We have a public safety crisis because we don't let our local police do their jobs. And we have an overdevelopment crisis in our suburban communities because of high-density housing. It's been a failure across the board, and we need change.
Okay. Thank you.
I believe.
Is it to me?
Yes.
Okay. Number 5, Congressman Cheryl.
No, you're right, Bill. It was me.
But I'll take it anytime you want.
No,
It's okay.
I love this question. Congresswoman, we are in a government shutdown. Democrats say this is to protect against Medicare cuts and rising premiums. Republicans argue you should fund the government and deal with everything else in negotiations. Why is a shutdown with workers furloughed and programs stopped better than doing that?
So I think we've seen at every level cuts to affordability for working people. So we've seen these tariff cuts, we've seen these healthcare costs, we've seen hikes on utility costs as we go forward with the One Big Beautiful Bill. And now they've taken away healthcare in the One Big Beautiful Bill for millions of people, and they now want to cut healthcare support for people who still have it with the markets, the Affordable Care Act markets. That's what we're fighting for. And so right now with the president, with the Senate, and the House, all in GOP hands, the fact is they've got to work to reopen government so workers can get back to work and we can continue to drive down healthcare costs.
Mr. Chitterelli.
Work to reopen government? When there were shutdowns during the Biden era, she voted every time for the continuing resolution to keep government, get it open again. This time around, with Trump in the White House, she's voted no on the resolutions to keep government open. I hope the shutdown ends within moments. I hope it ends tomorrow. We've got 22,000 New Jerseyans that are being furloughed because of the shutdown. But this is what happens in Washington, D.C. The job of a governor is to get things done. I have relationships with people in the legislature. We'll be able to work together to get things done. I've heard a number of times already tonight that President Trump seems to be responsible for everything that's wrong in New Jersey. I don't know what he has to do with our property taxes. I don't know what he has to do with our electricity rates, the failure of our public school system, the failure of our public safety across New Jersey with handcuffing our police, the failure of overdeveloping our suburbs. He doesn't have anything to do with all those things. So as I often like to say on the campaign trail, if you get a flat tire tomorrow, get ready. She's going to blame it on President Trump.
I know he likes to excuse President Trump from everything because that's who he works for, basically. But here are the facts. 1 in 3 children are on Medicaid. There's going to be about a $5 billion hole in the budget because of Trump's cuts to Medicaid. He's cut off funding for some of our innovative power as we're facing utility crisis. It's going to drive up costs for families by hundreds of dollars. He's just taking away Title I funding for our schools, driving up our taxpayer rates. So that's why I'm fighting that. But make no mistake, I'll also fight Trenton to bring down costs for families.
Okay, thank you both very much. We're going to take a question from one of our media partners. It's for Mr. Cheddarelli, and you'll have a chance to come back afterwards. This is from Univision. Here's Ana Patricia Camdiana.
Mr. Chattarelli, in our recent Univision town hall, you spoke about a path to recognition for undocumented immigrants. What exactly do you mean? Are you referring to a path to citizenship?
I support the president in securing the border. I believe it was a matter of national security. I think it's my role as governor to keep the state safe, and we'll do that on day one by not having sanctuary cities in our state, nor will we be a sanctuary state. I've been very, very transparent about that. I think that only encourages illegal immigration, and it does restrict our local police in certain ways. And if a local mayor and police chief want to work in partnership with a federal agency to keep their community safe, I think they should be allowed to do so. Having said that, anyone who came here from a history of criminality, came here illegally, came from a history of criminality in their country of origin, has to go back. Anyone who came here illegally and has committed crime or has scammed our government assistance program since coming here has to go back. I believe that everyone else should be put on a pathway to recognition. This has always been my position. And so a pathway to recognition means some form of government-issued ID, so we don't have people living in the shadows or working under a falsified Social Security number, which isn't fair to those who do that. So the answer to the very specific answer to her question is a pathway to recognition.
That's not really a real thing. That doesn't confer any status to anyone. So that's why, standing up here, I'm incredibly concerned about public safety. I'm a former federal prosecutor. I'm the only person on the stage who's prosecuted a violent criminal who was then deported. So I care deeply about that. But I've always been for comprehensive immigration reform, as have many people. We got very close, even with some very conservative members of the Senate. And that involves securing our borders, creating a pathway to citizenship for DACA recipients, TPS recipients, people who are working and paying taxes. Having that pathway could be so helpful to our economy. So that's a very clear answer to this. I think Jack works to say anything he can to anyone, but at the end of the day, he's always going to do what Trump tells him to do.
30 seconds? Mm-hmm. The Congresswoman has been anything but strong when it comes to public safety. In Congress, she voted to get rid of qualified immunity. This is the bedrock of protection for local law enforcement. She has said that she is considered reappointing the current Attorney General, who's considered to be the most anti-police Attorney General we've ever had. She's given some kind of weird endorsement of Mondami. Mondami has endorsed her. I called on her to renounce that endorsement. Josh Shapiro, the Democratic governor of Pennsylvania, has denounced Mondami, as has the congressman in the north. And this is somebody who's been also anti-police. We want our community safe. We need a governor, an attorney general, 21 county prosecutors, and a superintendent of state police who will keep our community safe.
The next question goes to you, Congresswoman Cheryl. Political tensions are at a high, and there are true fears in the public about political violence. We recently saw the assassination of Charlie Kirk, and in this state in 2020, a judge's son was killed in a political attack. Are there concrete things that you can do to help bring people together without fear?
Yeah, that was horrific. That's a judge I practiced before, and we worked incredibly hard at the federal level to get Daniel's Law so that we could actually get resources into the federal judges to keep them safe. But we've seen a continued uptick in political violence, and that is never acceptable. It really undermines, I think, our democracy and the idea that people want to come forward and serve. And I worry very much that with this kind of political violence, we are going to see people trying to step away from public life. So here in New Jersey, as governor, I will always work to make sure everyone is safe, to ensure that people can speak freely and yet not face political violence. I've worked at every level to do just that, whether it's on college campuses, with our presidents of universities to ask how they're keeping students safe there. I've also worked throughout the state to make sure that in our district, we are listening to all voices. I've heard from people on all different sides of the issue. They are always welcome to have discussions with my office.
Mr. Chitterelli?
Since the time that the Congresswoman has declared for governor, she's missed 90% of the votes in Washington. But a few Fridays ago, she skipped out of two very important joint appearances in New Jersey to get to Washington, D.C. to vote yes on the Charlie Kirk resolution celebrating his life. I applaud her yes on that vote. When she came back to New Jersey and caught hell from the left, she issued a statement condemning Charlie Kirk, calling him a misogynist and a racist. The two things are inconsistent to me. The way to tamp down the hateful rhetoric is by having the right kind of leadership in place. I've always conducted myself in a respectful way, even when I disagree with people. I'm never going to tarnish the name my parents gave me, and I'm never going to embarrass my 4 children. I've always been respectful with my rhetoric, and I think that that's more important than ever. New Jersey is the most diverse state in the country. I think there's power and beauty in that diversity when we embrace it. I embrace it. Anyone who follows me on social media sees everywhere I go, and I mean everywhere, because we're all in this together, and I will represent all 9.3 million New Jersey citizens.
Congresswoman, just very briefly, do you want to respond to that in 15 seconds, if you could?
I do. So that resolution was a resolution standing up for free speech and standing against political violence. And I do feel very strongly about that. I also feel very strongly that despite the fact that Charlie Kirk had a right to say a lot of things, I deeply disagreed with them. In fact, when I asked my opponent if he could disagree with Charlie Kirk saying Martin Luther King was a bad guy or that women should be subservient to their husbands, he could not. So I think it's my right to speak out as well against things that I disagree with.
Okay, thank you very much. We want to get to this next question. As we've all seen, there is no shortage of problems on New Jersey transit, no shortage at all. And in the past week, we have seen, and it was mentioned today, that the Trump administration stopped funding and thereby delaying construction of the uber-important Gateway to connect a third tunnel between New Jersey and New York City, a crucial tunnel. What's your response to that? We'll start with Mr. Chitterelli.
So the bad news is there's a shutdown right now. I hope that it ends any moment, if not tomorrow. The good news with regard to the Gateway project, which is critically important and a quintessential governmental infrastructure program, is that the Gateway Commission is what funds that project. And then the Gateway Commission seeks reimbursement from the federal government for their end of the deal. The construction is not stopping. This shutdown would have to go on for 2 or 3 months before the Gateway project would grind to a halt. We have to fix New Jersey transit. And I'm proposing something you've seen in other states. Put all of our mass transit systems under one roof. The Garden State Transportation Authority. Atlantic City Expressway produces revenue with its tolls. Parkway and Turnpike produce revenue with its tolls. New Jersey Transit produces revenue with its fares. Put it all under one roof, one management structure, better accountability, better transparency. I'll fill in the blanks with the subsidy from state government, our state budget. That's the dedicated revenue stream to fix New Jersey Transit.
Congresswoman, your response.
So this is not tied to the shutdown. This is simply the president saying he's freezing the Gateway Tunnel funds, which he should not be able to do. And in my administration, I take him to court over it because those are congressionally appropriated funds for the Gateway Tunnel. I know this because I fought tooth and nail to get those funds in place. And so for my opponent to sort of brush off that these funds are frozen, these funds that, as I stated, can lead to about 100,000 jobs, that when we run out of money will cost us $1 million a day. We already have shovels in the ground. We are already moving forward on this. Our communities have gone through summer of hell after summer of hell after summer of hell. How do I know? Because my husband Jason takes the tunnel, and he has had trouble getting home from work, had to call me to go pick up our kids somewhere, or because he was going to miss an event that we had. So again and again, this is impacting people's lives, it's impacting their ability to get to work, and that is why I will constantly make sure that we are addressing our transportation needs here in New Jersey and taking care of the New Jersey commuter.
You have 30 seconds, sir.
You'll hear generalities and platitudes. The specific question was regarding New Jersey Transit. Here's what we need to do. Every single train and bus line needs to be reevaluated for ridership. If there isn't adequate ridership on every one of those lines, we have a tough decision to make. I do think we should dedicate our limited resources to those lines that provide the greatest value to the greatest number of commuters. It's time for that kind of reevaluation, but we need a new management structure. This administration, which he has supported through and through, had 8 years to fix it. They failed.
If I may, because my opponent likes to put out misinformation, the specific question was about the Gateway Tunnel project, which you failed to answer.
I thought it was New Jersey Transit in part as well.
I brought that up just officially. I have my thing right here. We talked about it, but I said, Mr. Trump, stop the funding about this tunnel.
And I did answer that. Okay. The Gateway Commission gets reimbursed by the federal government for the continuation of that. You would need a shutdown for 2 or 3 months before the shovels stop working.
This doesn't have to do with the shutdown. This is the president freezing those funds inappropriately.
It's a negotiation that's taking place with the Congress.
With the people of New Jersey and their commuting at state.
There's a negotiation that's taking place with the Congress.
I think the two of you have stated your positions and you're not changing. We're going to take a short break. We'll be back in just a minute.
Welcome back. You ready for the second round? All right. We're going to just switch gears a little bit and give you kind of a quick talk. We're going to make it very quick, if like 15 seconds on each one, 30 seconds max would be great. And it will take a different turn than some of the other questions. You are each people who have several children each, 4 each, as I understand it, right? Okay. As a parent, we're both parents. Mm-hmm. Most of the people here are parents. What are the things that make you most afraid, given everything that's happening in this country right now? Congressman, I'll start with you.
Yeah, so I have 3 teenagers and a 20-year-old. And so I'm incredibly concerned about the world we're leaving to them, about their ability to all move back to New Jersey. I'm really concerned about the mental health of children right now. It's why I'm going to pass the Kids Online Safety Act as governor. It's why I'm going to drive more mental health resources into our kids' schools. Right now, you speak to parents, you speak to psychologists, and you hear again and again that we are facing a mental health crisis in our kids. And I want to make sure we address that. I'm also worried about our schools here in New Jersey. 3rd grade reading is not where it should be. And we know that's a key inflection point. That's how we know if people can move on to their social studies and history and math homework. So we're going to do phonics education. That's the best type of education to make sure kids are reading at appropriate grade level.
The mental health crisis, for sure. When I was a Somerset County freeholder, we created a community mental health center so people can have easy, convenient access to high quality care. I want to work with our 21 counties of government to do the exact same thing in all 21 counties. I too am very, very concerned about the public education system. We've got school districts where 80% of the kids are not on grade level for reading, writing, and math. Who has school choice? People with money. People with money can send their kids to private school. People without money do not have school choice. So if their school system is failing, I will provide them choice. My opponent will not. Voucher system like we've seen in Arizona, Ohio, and Florida. Charter schools, they've been very successful here in New Jersey, but only one has been approved in 8 years' time. We need to provide educational choice where districts are failing. And we need to employ a high-impact curriculum like we've seen in places like Louisiana and Mississippi. A high-impact curriculum, if your child is behind grade level in reading, writing, math, they'll spend the entire next marking period doing nothing other than reading, writing, and math.
Okay. Thank you very much, both of you.
We're going to continue on, and we're going to go to Congresswoman Cheryl. We've seen the president move to deploy the National Guard in other states. If the president were to order the National Guard into a New Jersey city, how would you evaluate the move, and are there circumstances under which you would support it?
You know, unless there is an insurrection or some sort of crisis where the National Guard could come in and the president invokes the Insurrection Act, He's moving these National Guard troops across the country illegally, against the Insurrection Act, against Posse Comitatus. And I can tell you this because I've both worked at the U.S. Attorney's Office with law enforcement to keep people safe, and I've also worked in the military. And those are two very different jobs. And military members should not be on our streets. It makes people less safe. It makes people feel less safe. So I have to say, when you look at this across the country, and when you look at the threats, and then you see the president saying when he was with Hegseth recently that he's going to use our U.S. cities as training grounds for our military, that is unacceptable. I will not stand for that as governor.
Mr. Chittorelli.
Tam, I've told the president and the people of New Jersey they'll never have to worry about New Jersey because as governor, we'll have safe communities, and here's why. I appoint the Attorney General. I appoint the 21 county prosecutors. I appoint the superintendent of the state police, and we're going to be a law and order state again. We do that by not having sanctuary cities, and we do that by reforming bail reform. Cashless bail has created a professional criminal in New Jersey who's learned how to game the system. Talk to your local police about arrest, release, repeal. My opponent has not said a word about getting rid of sanctuary cities, the Immigrant Trust Directive. She's not said a word about reforming bail reform. Yet cops will tell you all the time that this is one of the things getting in the way of keeping our communities safe. So again, the president won't have to worry about these things in New Jersey. My Attorney General, the head law enforcement officer, the 21 county prosecutors that report to that Attorney General, and it's all the police chiefs that report to those county prosecutors, we will be a law and order state again, and there will be a consequence for unruly, unlawful behavior.
30 seconds.
You know, I'm the only one who's actually worked closely with law enforcement, prosecuting cases to keep dangerous people off the streets. I'm very proud of my record there. And I continue to push forward in that work. So I've worked with all of the police chiefs in my district on our auto thefts to make sure we had license plate readers, federally funded, so we could drive down the rash of auto theft. So again and again and again, I've worked on public safety. But he misunderstands what's going on in this country if he thinks these National Guard troops are being positioned in the most dangerous cities. They're not.
Mr. Chittorelli.
May I?
30 seconds.
What I'm worried about is what I can control. What I can control is public safety in New Jersey. She worked for the U.S. Attorney's Office as a community organizer. Then she worked for the New Jersey Attorney, U.S. Attorney, for 11 months and pled most of her cases, pleading cases with people who were let go for a number of different things, some of them very heinous crimes. So I doubt very much whether this is somebody who can stand here and say that she's tough on crime. But the fact that she voted to get rid of qualified immunity for local police, which is the bedrock of their protection, and the fact that she's did this dance with Mandami, she's not about public safety.
Would you like 30 seconds to respond?
Yeah, so, you know, my opponent denigrates public service at every turn. He said law enforcement shouldn't get the pay they get because there's a lot more dangerous jobs out there where people make less. He's voted against our pension system in the past. Again and again, he puts down people who serve the public. I'm proud of my service at the U.S. Attorney's Office. I'm proud of my service in the U.S. military, and I'm proud of people who serve. And as governor, I'm going to make sure I have their backs.
Mr. Chittorelli, you get the next question. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the national unemployment rate is a little bit over 4%, but in New Jersey, it's around 5%. Adding to the uncertainty around hiring are concerns about tariffs, inflation, and AI. How will you get around this environment to bring jobs to New Jersey?
Tam, we have always lagged the national average when it comes to unemployment because we're always ranked 48th, 49th, or 50th in the country as one of the worst places in the country to do business. The current administration is trying to tax its way out of fiscal calamity in Trenton. I'm going to responsibly reduce the size and cost of state government to afford a tax cut for individuals and our businesses. But make no mistake, you can't cut your way out. We've got to grow the economy. And I'm going to grow the economy by making New Jersey a better place to do business. That means lowering the highest business tax in the nation, lessening regulations without screwing the consumer, residents, or doing irreparable harm to the environment, making sure there's an ample labor pool because of a dynamic relationship in my government between the Department of Labor, Department of Education, and getting electricity rates down. If the president is successful, and I hope that he is, in bringing manufacturing back as one example of blue-collar, middle-class jobs, they're not coming to New Jersey as long as we have the highest property taxes in the nation, the highest electricity rates. I'll make New Jersey a better place to do business, grow the economy, create jobs, and get that unemployment number down.
Congresswoman.
You know, my opponent likes to talk a lot about being a businessman, but I think what New Jersey doesn't know is much about his business, how he made his millions, by working with some of the worst offenders and saying that opioids were safe, putting out propaganda, publishing their propaganda while tens of thousands of New Jerseyans died. And as if that wasn't enough, Then he was paid to develop an app so that people who were addicted could more easily get access to opioids. And so as he made millions, as these opioid companies made billions, tens of thousands of New Jerseyans died.
Mr. Chitterelli.
First of all, shame on you. Second of all,
shame on you, sir.
Shame on you. During the Biden administration, she had no problem whatsoever with tens of thousands of people crashing our border each and every day, not knowing what impact they had in our communities with regard to fentanyl crisis, fentanyl abuse, fentanyl distribution, vaccination rates and the like. Talk to your local police, talk to your county prosecutors in New Jersey. Since the border's been secured, fentanyl crisis has decreased significantly. She supported those open border policies. But with regard to everything she just said about my professional career, which provided my family, it's a lie. I'm proud of my career.
You get 30 seconds.
I'm happy to publish the information. And here
I'm
are the
sure
facts.
you are.
I work because I think our kids deserve better. I think the people you got addicted and died deserve better than you. And I'll tell you, tens of thousands here as you published misinformation, as you got more people addicted, as you worked to develop, got paid to develop an app so that more people could get more opioids and die.
I got the walk at my college graduation.
I
got the walk at my college graduation.
And I'm so glad that you then went on to kill tens of thousands of people in New Jersey, including children,
and I never broke the law.
they got. You just broke the law. In fact, your campaign right now is under federal investigation for how you illegally got access to my records. So to say that right now, and I think you're trying to divert from the fact that you killed tens of thousands of people by printing your misinformation, your propaganda, and then getting paid to develop an app so that people could more easily get the opioids once they were addicted. Families across the state deserve to know more about that.
Mr. Chitterelli, you get 15 seconds.
The difference between me and the Congresswoman, I got the walk at my college graduation. I've never broken the law. She had to pay federal fines for breaking federal law on stock trades and stock reporting. And the New York Times reports was trading defense stocks while sitting on the House Armed Services Committee.
I think you get 15 seconds now.
This is the same old misinformation that he continues to promote because he knows that I don't trade in individual stocks. He knows I've gone above and beyond that. He also knows he promotes some garbage number, but he actually knows so much about my finances because they're all to the dollar. But here's the other thing. What he never learned, despite walking at his graduation, was accountability, integrity, care for the community. And I think that disqualifies him.
Tam,
thank you both.
She released 2 years of tax returns the years after she paid the federal fines. I've released 12 years
yours
going
a
back
minute
every
before the
single
last
year.
debate because you knew I was going to call you on it.
Let's move on to some of the interesting,
getting desperate.
Some of the issues that people in New Jersey are thinking about, and we're going to switch it pretty drastically here. Both of you have been critical about the high cost of electricity in New Jersey. I would like you to tell us specifically, and all the viewers watching, how you would lower prices and perhaps bring in sources of alternative energy, which I think, based on my business days, business school days, we could increase supply and lower prices that way. Ms. Cheryl, please start it off.
Sure. So, you know, we have an alphabet soup of agencies in this state who have kicked the can down the road and then dumped the extra cost on the ratepayer, which is why on day one of my administration, I'm going to declare a state of emergency on utility costs and freeze rate hikes. I know my opponent laughs at it and doesn't actually want to address the utility crisis or the families that are suffering, but on my watch, I am stopping this. This is not acceptable. I'm going to drive in an energy arsenal of power as we drive costs down over time, making sure we build out our solar, our battery storage, improve our gas generation in the state, and then develop nuclear power. We need to make sure we produce here because let's face it, the PJM market, which he's called some small nonprofit, while numerous bipartisan governors across our region are demanding better, our market is screwed up and it's driving up cost here. So if we produce it here at home, we can drive down those energy costs.
Okay, sir.
77 incumbent Democratic legislators, many of which have been in the legislature for a long time, 52 of which are on the ballot this year. Not a single one has endorsed her plan. Not a single one has embraced it. Governor of her own party went on TV and said, I don't think you can do that. It's an illegit plan and it's not feasible. Let's talk about, since we have seconds here, how we got to this point. Phil Murphy shut down 6 different electricity generation plants, put a moratorium on natural gas-fired electricity generation, didn't expand nuclear in South Jersey, and didn't accelerate solar on the rooftops of all the warehouses that have gone up, which is prime real estate for solar arrays. The DEP slows down the permitting process every single time. Here's what I'll do as governor. We've already talked about pulling out of RGGI. Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative has been a failed policy. Electricity is more expensive, air's no cleaner. We can save $300 to $500 million a year. That's real. I will reopen and repurpose the plants that were shut down. I will lift the moratorium on natural gas-fired electricity generation. I'll expand nuclear in South Jersey and accelerate solar on the rooftops of warehouses.
So Politico just recently called him out for his misinformation, saying it was on his watch that many of these things were shut down, including a nuclear power plant. And so I will tell you, if you want the same old, if you want the failed policies of old, you can vote for Jack Ciattarelli. But if you really want to see your energy costs go down, if you want to see innovation, if you want to see new ideas against the status quo, then I ask for you to vote for me.
Mr. Ciattarelli, next question. Do you support enshrining the right to an abortion in the state constitution as your opponent does?
I've always supported a woman's right to choose, and I said yes to that question back in 2021. What I don't support is celebrating abortion the way the current administration does. What I don't support is making New Jersey the abortion capital of the country, inviting other people from other states to come to New Jersey and have their abortions performed. I don't support that, let alone use taxpayer dollars to do that. I also support something that my opponent does not, parental notification. In the state of New Jersey, you can't get your ears pierced under the age of 18 without the permission of your parents. But we're not going to notify parents when a 16 or 17-year-old is having an abortion performed? I think that's terribly wrong. I've yet to find the most liberal, maybe with one exception, of women across the state who support that policy. So that's where my position has always been on abortion. I've supported a woman's right to choose.
Congresswoman.
So again, he's peddling misinformation. You know, I don't think he knows what's going on in the state, or he's willfully ignoring it, or in this country. You know, we're hearing stories across the country about horrible outcomes, like Portia, a woman in Texas, who went to the emergency room as she was miscarrying, 2 young children at home. As she was miscarrying, they gave her multiple transfusions, but because of abortion bans like the one my opponent's proposing, the doctors were afraid to give her a DNC or an abortion to save her life. So she died in an emergency room, purely preventable, could have been taken care of. But when you put in place things like my opponent has suggested, people die. We also have the fact that when he was last in office, he voted to defund Planned Parenthood. So these are not pro-choice positions. I know he's getting up here to tell everyone what they want to hear right now as he desperately tries for the 3rd time to become the next governor of New Jersey, but this is not credible. Abortion bans, defunding Planned Parenthood, those are not a pro-choice position.
Mr. Ciattarelli.
We're not Texas. Any woman whose pregnancy is in trouble, whose health is at stake, they will be able to have their abortion performed safely by competent clinicians to protect the woman's health. We are not Texas. With regard to Planned Parenthood, the question I've always asked the Democrats in the Trenton is, why is it they get 100% of the money? Why is it we don't send any of the money to pregnancy resource centers like Lighthouse in Bergen County, for example? I don't think that's fair. Let's distribute the money equitably.
And it's time now to go to another question from our media partner, Univision. This one will go to Congresswoman Sherrill. And here again, once again, is Anna Patricia Candiani.
Congresswoman Sherrill, New Jersey's all water pipes are failing, causing frequent water main breaks and sinkholes in our communities. Fixing the issue is estimated to cost $24 billion over 20 years. Can you commit to fix this problem, and how would you fund it?
Yeah, so we have had water main problems throughout New Jersey, and I've worked to drive funding into it. We need a combination of federal and state funding to address these breaks. While I've been in Congress, I addressed the lead pipe remediation in Nutley and Belleville, making sure that we had safer pipes. And we've seen we have some of the oldest water infrastructure in the nation, which is why it's critical we replace it, but very expensive, which is why working with the delegation, our federal delegation, to drive in federal resources to this is going to be the best way to remediate the problem, but also continue to drive down costs for New Jersey families.
Mr. Ciattarelli.
I'd like to get back to the 3 pillars of all state governments in all 50 states. It was always about public safety and education, public safety, if you will, public health and safety rather, public education and infrastructure. And here in the state of New Jersey, our infrastructure is in demand. We saw it recently with a major pipe break in Patterson with a 100-year-old pipe. I was there. The current governor wasn't. My opponent wasn't. But I was there to talk to the businesses and residents who were without fresh water for 2 or 3 weeks. This also represents a magnificent jobs program in terms of improving our infrastructure all around the state. And so this is the kind of thing that gets me very excited about being governor. Not only improving a critical infrastructure program, but creating jobs along the way. We have to do it. We have pipes that are now 100 years old. In some cities, we have pipes that are delivered, they're wooden pipes that are delivering the water. I also want to have conversations with those municipalities that have their own water utility. I think it's time for them to have a serious conversation with selling that to the water companies who have the capitalization to improve the infrastructure.
Congresswoman Cheryl.
So again, I think infrastructure is such a key thing. And that's why I've fought for it since the minute I've been in Congress. Water infrastructure, our rail infrastructure, making sure we have better buses across the state. And at every turn, my opponent's turning a blind eye when we see cuts to this infrastructure from the federal government. So the recent freezing of the Gateway Tunnel funds by Donald Trump that my opponent said wasn't a New Jersey problem is just the latest example.
Okay. We're going to move on to another subject. We're going to talk about schooling. We're going to start with Mr. Chitterelli. We all know that all of our futures depend, all of them, on the education that young people are getting. How do we level the playing field and fix schools in New Jersey, especially those in lower performing districts, so all kids who are the future of all of us, get a top-notch education?
So, Bill, in the post-pandemic world here in New Jersey, we have not compensated for all the learning loss that took place because the governor shut down the schools for 2 years. Think about this for a second. He opened up the nursing homes, where we led the nation in nursing home deaths, but closed the schools for 2 years. And we haven't compensated for all that learning loss. Here's what I've said all along. We've slipped from 2 to 12 on the national report card. You're never going to hear me say something my opponent likes to say often. We've got the best school system in the country. We do not. You take out the top 10% performers, which skew the results, it's a whole different story. 50% of the incoming freshmen at every one of our 19 community colleges, are taking remedial courses that don't even qualify for college credit. We need to do what Mississippi and Louisiana did, high impact curriculum. If your child is behind grade level, that's all we're going to focus on, the critical life skills until they are. But I'm also going to provide school choice. My opponent will not, because she's owned by the teachers union, who does not want school choice. No vouchers, no charter schools. I will provide educational choice.
Congresswoman?
You know, I think it's interesting how he keeps citing places like Louisiana and Mississippi. I think some of the worst schools in the entire nation. If that's where he wants to drive us to, I think voters better be aware of that. Because I'm going to make sure that we are driving in better results for our kids. And so one of the few things my opponent and I seem to agree on is learning loss is a huge issue. The difference is, as he's been a perennial gubernatorial candidate, I've been actually working to address that. It's why I put in place high-intensity tutoring, a federal bill. I've worked with the state legislators so we could do it at the state level as well. Make sure we're addressing learning loss. Ensuring we are addressing third grade reading. As governor, I'm going to make sure we're teaching phonics to our teachers. That is the best way to help students learn reading, and I've discussed how important that is. Driving in better mental health resources to our students and passing the Kids Online Safety Act, which is going to help all of our students have a better experience, better mental health, and better outcomes.
Sir?
I'm going to repeat something I said earlier in the evening because I think it's one of the things that differentiates the two of us very, very much, but also reveals one of the hypocrisies of the Democratic Party that wants to portray itself as the party of the marginalized, disadvantaged, and minorities. Who has school choice? People with money. They can pull their children out because they have the wherewithal to send them to private school. Who doesn't have school choice, particularly in failing school districts? People without the money. I'll provide them choice with vouchers and charter schools. My opponent will not.
We're running out of some time, but we're going to make up for it right now. We're going to move to 30-second response to this. Mr. Chitterelli, we'll start with you. When he was elected president last year, Donald Trump gave a speech saying he would ensure freedom of speech to Americans. Forward to 9 months later, many Americans, many of whom live in New Jersey, are questioning whether freedom of speech is now shrinking in this country or even getting taken away. What would you say to those people who worry about this?
Number one, I can't control what other people say. Number two, I won't be afraid to step up from the people in New Jersey every day of the week if something is taking place that disadvantages them in any way, including their constitutional rights. And there will be free speech here in the state of New Jersey. I appoint the Attorney General. I appoint the county prosecutors. I appoint the Superior Court judges. We'll have a law enforcement community and a judiciary that respects people's constitutional rights every day of the week.
Congresswoman.
So I've taken numerous oaths to the Constitution my whole life and fought for those values enshrined in it. I will always protect free speech in this state. I do worry that there are rollbacks going on, and I actually worry very much about something my opponent just said, that he'll appoint the Supreme Court judges. I think there's 2 upcoming judges, and my opponent has said he's going to remake our New Jersey court like Trump remade the Supreme Court.
That's a lie.
I think everyone who's worried about free speech should be very worried about my opponent being in office to appoint judges.
15 seconds.
I've never said that. What I've said is that I will appoint Supreme Court justices that agree with me on issues like high-density housing in suburban districts where there's no infrastructure, and who agree with me on school funding. I've never said what she just said I said. It's another lie.
All right, we're going to take a little turn. We're almost to your closings. 15 seconds on each of these, a little bit more fun. And this one will be interesting. We'll start with you, Congresswoman Cheryl. What is something you appreciate about your opponent?
So I really appreciate that his son is serving.
Mr. Chitterelli.
I appreciate her military service.
Anything else?
Yes, anything else? Okay, we'll move on. Congresswoman Cheryl, what is your favorite place in New Jersey?
Montclair. It's where my home is. It's where I've raised my kids.
Mr. Chitterelli.
Raritan, New Jersey, Somerset County, where my grandparents immigrated 100 years ago.
What is something about you, Ms. Cheryl, that most voters do not know?
Oh, let's see. I think my favorite things, and I've learned this over time, is going to my kids' sports games. I used to dread it, but now I really do enjoy that.
Mr. Chitterelli.
Getting up Sunday morning and making the gravy. And I want to be transparent, Tam. It's gravy, not sauce. It's macaroni, not pasta. But the meatballs, the brioches, and the sausage will be in the pot, and we'll have a Sunday dinner together.
And finally, do you support, Congresswoman Cheryl, a lot of pump your own gas?
No, I really enjoy, I've come into New Jersey on fumes from Delaware, especially when my kids were little and in the rain. So I think a lot of people really love our state laws as they are.
Mr. Chitterelli.
We have too many dubious distinctions, Tam, and I'll fix a great many of those. But one of our special differences here in New Jersey, we don't have to pump our own gas. Jersey girls don't like to pump their own gas. We'll continue to have full service.
What is the thing that you think you'd like to have to be the top brass in this state? What do you want to do the first day you're in office that no one's thinking about? Start with you.
I want to join the court case against the tariffs that the president's implementing right now. That's one of the #1 things I hear about as I speak to thousands of New Jerseyans, is how these tariff costs are raising everything from a cup of coffee to the groceries they buy to make dinner at night.
Sir?
Lower your energy costs on day one with Executive Order number 3. We're pulling out of RGGI. The Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative is a carbon tax policy that has failed New Jersey.
Both of you, thank you for those answers and what's happened in the last 55 minutes. We now have reached the end of our debate time, and it's time for each candidate's closing statements. The candidates will each have 1 minute for their closing statements, and we're going to begin with Congresswoman Cheryl.
Thank you. Shipmate self. It's a saying in the Navy. It means the mission comes first. It means the sailors come second, and as a leader, you come last. That's the kind of governor I'll be. And you know, the ship is New Jersey. Our mission to drive down costs for families. And I will be a leader who serves everyone, no matter who you are, where you live, or who you voted for. And as I've gone around the state, spoken to thousands of our neighbors, I've heard again and again, we want a great state where we can raise our families. We want our kids to have a shot. We want to make sure we're safe and healthy. And so that's the kind of governor I'm going to be. Those are the things I'm going to work on. And I have to tell you, I know too many people think it's too hard right now. But I believe, despite the chaos, despite the challenges, we can be better. We can do better. And so if you vote for me as your governor, I would be incredibly honored, and I will work every single day to be worthy of that mission.
Mr. Chitterelli.
My opponent has based her entire campaign on a stack of lies about me, her disdain for the president, and that's not going to fix New Jersey. What we need are solutions here in New Jersey. Her party has controlled the legislature for 25 years. They've had the executive branch for the last 8 years. Can anybody honestly say that things are better off today than back whenever? If you want change, you have to make a change. If my opponent is elected, nothing will change. It'll be more of the same, only worse. The Cettarellis have been here for 100 years. 3 generations of Cettarellis have all achieved their American dream right here in New Jersey. And so when I'm asked why am I running for governor, it's very simple. I want today's New Jerseyans and future generations of New Jerseyans to feel confident they can achieve their American dream here in New Jersey. We have an affordability crisis, a public education crisis, a public safety crisis, and an overdevelopment crisis in the state. And tonight, I put forth a plan. Very specific ideas, solutions, and policy proposals on how to fix New Jersey. I hope to have your vote.
You have both made your cases, and we thank you. We thank you. We thank you for letting us do this part of it. And you made your points, and we appreciate that, both of you.
Thank you both.
Okay.
Thank you.
And that brings us with this, the end of our debate. We want to thank the candidates for taking part indeed. And we wish them good luck to both of you. And we thank you, the viewers. We thank you, the viewers, for thanking and being with us tonight. We hope tonight was hopeful when you make your decision about who you will vote to choose for the New Jersey's next governor.
I too want to thank both of you, thank all the viewers, voters out there who are watching. Thank Bill for being such a great co-moderator. And thank you as well to our partners, the Edward J. Blaustein School of Planning and Public Policy, the New Brunswick Performing Arts Center, and our media partner, Univision. I'm Tamala Edwards of 6ABC, WPVI in Philadelphia.
And I'm Bill Ritter of Channel 7 Eyewitness News, WABC TV in New York. We encourage you to do what all Americans should be doing. Exercise your right to vote on Tuesday, November the 14th, or by early voting, which begins on October 25th. I have wanted to make sure I get that number. October 25th begins it for all of us here. And thank you for working with me today. It was really an honor. Thank you for watching. And we say to all of you, health and good night.
Good night.